Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто воде всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 442 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in the Ukraine, and it's good news, as the Ukrainians have been able to conduct what we call a breakthrough, or in other words, once again, another sweep in Bakhmut, and we've heard that they've practically made it all the way behind Bakhmut as of right now. But before we get into that news, because we have literally about 20 different pieces of news in the Bakhmut area tonight, we're going to be giving y'all some of the appetizers to show y'all what's in store for the Russians as the days keep on passing by, because it's going to get better and better from here. And so starting off, in the United Kingdom, we heard today from the British government, the Ministry of Defense reported that they have actually delivered Storm Shadow missiles to the Ukrainian Air Force for them to use later on. According to what the Ministry of Defense has said, they said that they gave them under the condition that they would only be used in Ukrainian sovereign territory, which means the Russian-occupied areas, Crimea, and the rest of Ukraine. It is something interesting to note, and on top of that, what's even more interesting to note about this is that it has a range of more than 250 kilometers. And I went and made the measurement today, and that means that at the minimum, this thing has just enough range right now to be fired from the edge of Ukraine's airspace, outside of occupied territory, straight at the Crimean Bridge. It has just the right amount of range. So it's good to know that the British are providing the Storm Shadow missile. Hopefully the Ukrainians can use it well in the future. But it is great to see that the British are still providing some top-notch weaponry to the Ukrainians, and hopefully we'll see it in use here soon. With that, we're going to be moving on out of Britain and on towards Poland, specifically Warsaw, where we heard from the Polish government that all MiG-29s that they had promised the Ukrainians have been delivered. And it says right here, actually, out of the 28 aircraft transferred to Kyiv so far, Poland has sent as many as 14 MiG-29 fighters, which from what we understand is all of the MiG-29s that they pledged beforehand. And so the entire allotment of Polish MiG-29s has arrived in Ukraine and will most likely be seeing action or combat here in the near future. We have seen a couple of these MiG-29s in the skies. We've seen some Slovakian and Polish MiG-29s now with Ukrainian colors and camo on them taking to flight. But it is great to know that the Slovakians and the Polish have been providing a massive amount of support to the Ukrainian Air Force, because the Ukrainian Air Force was whittled down to about half its original size at the point where the Polish started to provide them their own MiGs. And also, I have to say, it's a really cool camo that they have the Ukrainian Trident in the top of the winter camo for their MiG-29. That's actually really cool.
Very cool. Looks like they almost made it out of like Legos or something with the way it's like drawn on there.
It kind of does, doesn't it? It looks like pixel art or something similar.
Yeah.
It's really cool, though. I like it. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news, and we're now going to be moving on into Russia, because now we've gone through a little bit of the warm-ups today about talking about Western support and what the Ukrainians will probably be able to do to the Russians here. But what are the Russians doing to the Russians? We got some of that good old Russian-on-Russian violence that makes you wonder, how in the hell did they even make it to the front lines in the first place? And really, it's a miracle, because a drunk Russian soldier shot 2 other Russian soldiers today, somewhere in the from Buryatia, which is the oblast out here near Irkutsk. We don't really know specifically where, but here's the clip of this soldier going what we call ham, or going full vodka. Here's the clip. We see one of the soldiers holding an AK here.
У тебя совесть есть. Ты живой, потому что, блядь.
And you see this guy, he's got the bottle in hand. This man, he's a legend. Bottle in hand, drunk as a skunk.
Ты 2 жизни сгубил, не подходи. Не подходи, говорю. Я все понимаю, Соломон, поэтому ты еще живой. Тебя свои же чуть не пристрелили. А знаешь почему? Потому что
It seems as though they may be trying to reason with the drunk Russian.
не подходи, говорю.
Стой, сам подошел, сказал, что вот так вот получилось.
Как получилось? Ты 2 жизни загубил. Час назад.
Вчера меня...
У одного
It's
3
not really
детей,
working, it
ёбаный в
seems.
рот.
Ночью ебать на меня прыгали. С ножом. Слышишь? Один и второй. Ой, это... Бурят. А потом второй бурят просто...
But you see them about to walk off. And you know something that's crazy, Matthew, is that this is in the far east of Russia, and how bad off it looks, you would almost swear this is like the Donetsk front line. Like, it is bad, actually. It's pretty rough out here.
И что, надо в бошки им стрелять с автомата?
Не бошки.
А
Я
почему?
начал стрелять, когда на меня с ножом. На тебя с ножом
Блять, а почему не я,
We see them
Соломон?
continuing to argue
Почему
with
не
the drunk
кто-то
Russian.
другой? Ты любого мог завалить, на.
Я не
У меня
рад,
тоже семья,
у меня
дети.
было такое, подраться.
Не подходи.
У тебя доверия нет ко мне больше?
He's now walking off over there to the corner, and the video ends, but according to the story, after this video ended, there was a firefight in between the drunk Russian and the two Russians that confronted him, and out of the firefight, we don't know who they were, but two of them ended up being shot. Probably the drunk Russian that was on film holding the bottle, and also one of the guys who confronted him. So pretty interesting to see, and once again showing that things are not going well at all for the Russians, even inside of Russia itself. We can see that the Russians are even racking up casualties against each other. I don't know if those are going to be reported on Ukraine's casualty report today, but one can only be optimistic. We're now going to be moving on into Ukraine and on into our location unknowns, where we've had some pretty interesting little clips today, once again showing a para jump being conducted by the Ukrainians. We don't know why the Ukrainians are spending time in the war to train their airborne soldiers on parajumps, because we have seen that the Ukrainians have never used parajumps so far in the war. It is probably just a part of their doctrine, so they continue to train on it. But here is another parajump training, I guess you could say, event that the Ukrainians held somewhere in western Ukraine. We can see the jump master here at the back of the plane getting ready to tell the soldiers to jump. And now we can see them hopping on out. And there they go, each and every one of them. And I gotta say, you gotta have a lot of balls to be able to hop out of a plane.
You really do. I don't know if I could bring myself to do it. Like, look at him just kind of falling down for a good minute, like spinning around.
Yeah, look at that guy. Like, look at these guys. They're just tumbling. Man, I don't know. I don't really know if I could actually do that or not. I don't really, honestly, I don't think I could. And there was the last of them. And that's the end of the clip, but once again, showing off the bravery of the Ukrainian airborne units as they continue to train on parajumps. And I gotta say, I actually saw Carta say, that looks fun. Honestly, it makes me nervous just to see these guys doing it. It really makes me nervous. I'm not really a big fan of, like, tall places, like being right near the edge or the cliff of something, or even falling. Yeah, or even falling for that matter. I guess Matthew and me would survive really well in Russia because we never get close to any, like, I guess you could say cliffs, precipices, or windows. But these guys right here, they are brave as hell, and I've got to give them a lot of credit. With that, we're going to be moving on into our next clip of news, where we saw the United 24 channel describe to us and explain to us how American volunteers have actually greatly helped in the training of Ukrainian soldiers so far in the war, and have helped them in some instances to make units far better than they would be. And so, here's the clip. You can see them firing an ATGM, firing some rifles.
It's not a part of the training, though. Since the beginning of the full-scale war in Ukraine, millions have stood up to fight against the aggressor. The world is proving that Ukraine is not alone in this. People from all over the world have united in their willingness to help Ukrainians.
My professional life is I work in renewable energy, but I have a background doing mountain search and rescue back in Los Angeles County, and so that's gave me the medic training that I apply here as an instructor.
Ukrainian army has grown 3 times due to mobilization and the high motivation of people to fight. That's why Dan established the Trident Defense Initiative to help foreign instructors share their knowledge most effectively.
I came to Ukraine to join the military, joined the Ukrainian Marines. I was in 36th Brigade, 1st Battalion. I deployed to the ATO and terrorist operations twice, for 8 months and 10 months, in 2019 and 20 to 21.
Dan started his military career in the British Army, then volunteered in Syria, Myanmar and Colombia. On February 24, he was on leave at his house in Bucha.
I basically ran an aid station in my basement. I took medicine from different pharmacies that were closed off. Us and volunteers, we opened up the pharmacies, and I ran about an aid station. We were responsible for giving medicine and giving treatments to about 400 people in Bucha.
14 instructors are training soldiers at the moment. Some specialize in medicine and some in tactics. Since the end of March, TDI has trained over 3,000 students. The organization works only at the request of the brigade's commanders.
So it's a chance for the two big groups that we're training, the tactical soldiers and the medics, to work together in a simulated combat scenario.
See them unloading a simulated wounded guy
is
here.
The most substantial part of the TDI program. They rely heavily on March and TC3 protocols. In the other part of the range, the tactical groups are practicing close combat techniques.
Да, это интересно и в плане подготовки, и в плане наработки навыков и получения опыта тех людей, с которыми ты в жизни бы никогда, возможно, и не встретился.
It's been difficult because sometimes I don't want to let the soldiers that I get to work with go off. You know, we develop a pretty strong bond, but I understand that my job is here now.
It's not only the Ukrainian soldiers who are studying. The TDI team is also in constant search for new skills. Sometimes ex-students bring the trophy Soviet weapons gained in the fight, so the instructors learn how it works.
Getting electrifying, yeah.
I'm glad that the Ukrainians gave me the opportunity to, especially after such appreciation of our training. We get to come out and play with them a little bit and see what they do.
Now we can see them firing the Hornets again.
It was great. The thing is, though, the second engine didn't take off, apparently. That's obviously, good Russia equipment.
Just in the middle of the training, the area was attacked with several S-300 rockets. This reminds that there is no safe place in Ukraine now, no matter if you're a soldier, instructor, or a civilian.
Man, that's a nice training building right here. Look at this thing. Like, hell, I don't even see offices that are this nice.
This reminds that there is no safe place in Ukraine now, no matter if you're a soldier, instructor.
Look at that. They got a little Coca-Cola thing. They got like a little stand here. This is like a Starbucks nearly. This is really impressive.
Instructor or a civilian.
The moment we got from the base to have some meal, there was 7 airstrikes. We don't know what's the situation at the moment. We just hope everyone is all right.
Fortunately, there were no casualties this day, and everyone was safe due to clear safety protocols and poor aiming. Rockets hit the exact same building that the Russians previously destroyed in the spring.
After the rocket attack to the training base, everyone is leaving, the instructors and soldiers also. So we don't know what's gonna happen next. We're just trying to get safe.
Danger is not a reason to stop training. For the instructors, it's not the first and most likely not the last time they work in extremely dangerous conditions. Such is the wartime reality.
We're not going to stop, obviously. We'll always keep going. The soldiers keep going. The civilians keep going. So no reason that we won't keep going as well.
Zhenya Melnik, United 24 Media.
And that was a
Man, United 24 makes the best documentaries of anyone in the war.
Man, they do, by far. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And they also gave a great look at the story of all of the volunteers that have come from around the world, not just the United States, but also the UK, that are helping to train Ukrainian soldiers and medical aid and all kinds of other stuff. I mean, it's really something to see how the world has come together to back up the Ukrainians in this war, and even in the training fields, the, I guess you could say, colorful kind of backstories that some of these instructors have and what they were doing before the war began. And these people, these instructors, are a small part, a small piece of the puzzle as to why the Ukrainians have been doing so well so far, and why they're absolutely obliterating the Russian forces in Bakhmut right now, and while they're also able to take a punch and keep going. Well, that we're going to be moving on into our next clip, where we saw that a young Ukrainian boy, actually gave his car to the Ukrainian army. he received the car from his uncle as a gift, but the boy, because he's not old enough to drive, he asked if his car could actually be given to the Ukrainian army. And so we can actually see a soldier here receiving the car, and the boy who was supposed to eventually get the car when he was old enough to drive. And I thought that was a nice little story right there, and something to certainly show, because not a lot of kids would give up their first car, but this kid had a pretty good idea that he wanted to help out his own country and help them to continue on fighting, and so he gave his own car over. And so with that, we're going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown news, where we saw that the Ukrainians are doing some, I guess you could say, double dipping of the chip as far as training goes. This was very interesting to watch, because what we're watching right now is a drone on a Ukrainian training ground, watching Ukrainian soldiers training in formation as they try and advance through a field. At the same time, this drone is trying to, I guess you could say the drone pilot is trying to figure out how to drop his bombs as precisely as possible on a moving target. And so while the Ukrainian infantry on the ground are learning how to advance in formation through a field, the drone pilot's trying to learn how to accurately drop his bomblet onto a moving target. And so you can see both of them happening at the same time. We can see the soldiers moving down there, we can see him dropping the training bomblet right on top of the Ukrainian soldier training. He got covered in flour or cornstarch or something. But it's very interesting to see. This guy got that pretty dead on the nail. Like, I think it actually dropped on the soldier. Yeah, it did. Man, that guy was... why was he even in training? He doesn't need training. That was already right on the mark. But really interesting to see, and we can see that the Ukrainians are trying to, I guess you could say, utilize every single spare second and every single opportunity possible to try and get everyone as well off as possible by the time they get out of training. We're now going to be moving on into our last bit of Location Unknown news before I go to Twitter, where we saw that the Russians are bringing forward something a little new. Many of y'all may know about the Cope Cage. The Cope Cage was a famous addition to many tanks at the beginning of the war because they wanted to try and help them survive things like Javelin ATGMs or anything that would explode from above the tank and down through the roof. You can see a picture right here of some T-72B3s that had the Cope Cage on them somewhere probably around early 2022 or even before the war. After a while, people started to learn that the Cope cages didn't really work too well, and if anything, it actually stopped the crew from escaping the burning tank, and so the crew would usually succumb to the fire along with the tank. This appears to be something that, while a lot of Russian tanks have abandoned, some of them are still carrying it on, and I've never seen anything as bad as this. The Ukrainians captured a T-54 today. A real proper T-54. Here it is right here, and they double layered the Cope cage.
Is that like a cheap version of a hunting blind?
I think it's supposed to be, honestly.
What in the world?
It is bad. It's really bad. And what's even worse is that this is this has to be, at least from what we've seen, the first recorded instance of a T-54 being captured. This is not a T-55. This is a T-54 of the 1951 variant. So this thing is just about 6 years older than World War II. And it was being...
The antique is here.
Peter, the tank museum's here.
And I gotta say, man, this is the end of the war. As far as I'm concerned, this is the end right here. This is as old as a tank can get before the Russians have no more tanks. And we actually saw that one of them was being used on the lines to the point that it was actually captured. And it also had double-layered Cope cage on top of it, which is also something else. Well, then we're going to be moving on from that little bit of Location Unknown news, and now we're going to be moving on over to the Kyiv Independent. And let me go to their Twitter, and let me make sure to get the loss report for the day, because I saw
they've gotta have some juicy losses today.
Man, it's probably pure juice, because I saw it earlier, and I know that there was 2 Bobcat skid steers that were destroyed. Yep, here we go. Here's the losses for May 11th. 2 Bobcat skid steers destroyed. Lauren threw in 2 Bobcats. Hey! And we see even more from Melissa Smith, Stefan throwing in 2 Bobcats. And also, oh no, that's actually kind of dark. But still, lots of Bobcats. And of course, 2 Bobcat skid steers, or 2 special equipment vehicles, did bite the dust today. Absolutely great to see, but what's even better to see is the losses in every other category. 610 Russian soldiers have eaten it today. Absolutely eaten the dust. they will no longer be a part of this war because they will now be growing the sunflowers and then the sunflower seeds that Ukraine is famous for. Not only that, but they lost a fairly large amount of armored personnel carriers again today, with another 12 armored personnel carriers being lost over the past 24 hours, along with 10 supply trucks around the war's average at that point. 4 main battle tanks, just under the war's average of around 5 main battle tanks per day. Still exceptional to see, and great to know that the Russians are losing a fairly good number of main battle tanks per day. Still, 14 artillery pieces, well over 3 artillery batteries, around 3.5 artillery batteries of artillery systems were destroyed. Of course, once again, I want to clarify this because we don't do this a lot. When it says artillery system, it doesn't just mean like the Mista S, the Gyansen, or the Mista B. It means really anything. So it could be a light mortar or it could be a Mista S. We don't really know what they are, but an entire 3 artillery batteries and a half have been destroyed over the past 24 hours. Exceptional. We also saw that 3 drones were destroyed, 2 MLRSs, we are not sure what kind, but there are very few MLRSs, so it doesn't leave a lot to imagination. It's really either an Uragan, a Smerch, or a Grad. It's one of the 3, and so it's great to know that those have been destroyed, and also a whole 2, and this is very rare, a whole 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems were destroyed today in the war. That means, and this is the craziest part about it, 4 main battle tanks costs the Russians about $13 to $14 million. 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, on average, are going to cost the Russians about $30 million in losses just for the 2 of them. And so the anti-aircraft losses alone far outweigh really the monetary losses of almost all of the other losses that the Russians took today combined. But these frontline losses are not showing a good picture for the Russians. And when we get to Bakhmut, y'all see that that picture is probably far worse than we're even seeing here on the casualty report right now. We'll probably see that this number continues to climb in the coming days, or the Russians are running so quickly, they're not getting whacked, they're just running away, because that's also something we've been hearing a lot about today as well. And so with that...
And also, I saw Mark say, in which category does the T-54 go? Is it tank or And honestly, I would say it might go in the like maybe special equipment, because I'm not sure if you can really consider that a tank anymore.
I don't think you can. I think the best that could be called is a mobile assault gun or something like that, because it's not a tank anymore. There's no way in hell that you can really call that thing a tank at this point in history. That's like bringing forward like a T-34 and calling that thing a frontline tank. Nah, that's not going to fly to me. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from the location unknowns and on down towards Dnipro, because before we get into that northeastern front news and right into Bakhmut, where we will be for the rest of the night, so make sure to stick around for that, because the Russians got obliterated in Bakhmut today. We, of course, can't really go into the exact details of where the Ukrainians are, but I can tell you where they have gotten at least around 12 hours ago. But in Dnipro today, we saw that the Ukrainians managed to down a Russian drone, and I think this is our best indicator that the Russians are just about out of the war. Here's the picture of the Russian drone the Ukrainians downed today. That's it. They're done. What
the hell?
This is, from what we've been told, something that is supposed to fill the role of a Orion like a surveillance drone or an Orlan.
That's messed up.
That is messed up. This is sad, man. This thing looks like one of those balsa wood model kits that you get, and they slapped two-stroke engines onto it, a small tank of gas, and probably a Nikon camera down there where we can't see it, and they sent that thing off. And actually,
or worse, hook it up with some rubber bands and like spin them around and drive the front propeller.
Yeah, that's probably what they did. But it actually made it pretty far, because this was down somewhere in the Dnipro-Trovolsk Oblast, which is the Dnipro Oblast where Dnipro City is. But that is still wild to see. The Russians are so bad off, they can't even get Orlan 10s anymore. They're having to start making these cheap things to have any kind of drone. And that's when you know the war is over, my friends, my good friends and LSA soldiers. That's when you know the war is lost, because if you're using stuff like this, there's really nothing left, is there? And so with that, we're going to be moving on from Dnipro, and we're now going to be moving on right into the northeast, because the Northeast has had some fun happenings today. Not as fun as Bakhmut's been, but it has been fun for the Ukrainians nonetheless, and even more fun for the Russians. But before we get into that news and into Bakhmut, where the Ukrainians conducted the sweep and all of the flanks around Bakhmut are collapsing right now, we've got to cover the polls. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and we have several polls to address. And real quick, I just want to remind everyone, if you have a question for us, please put at Enforcer Matt in the chat and put your question behind it so I can add it to the spreadsheet. I do need a few more right now. I see a few rolling in right now. But our very first poll says, evidence suggests that Ukraine's counteroffensive may have begun, and what is your assessment? It looks like 33% said the counteroffensive has begun, 15% said unsure, 29% said, it's still in preparation, and 23% said it hasn't begun just yet. And I'm going to go with the unsure. I'm leaning toward it has begun. There is some evidence pointing to that, and we'll get into that probably later in the stream. But Enforcer, where do you stand?
I would say, I'm going to have to be honest, I'm going to have to say I don't really know for certain at this point. We do know that the Ukrainians are doing an unbelievable job in Bakhmut right now, to the point that the Russians believe that the counteroffensive has begun, and Prighozin is even claiming that the flanks have completely collapsed and Bakhmut is now indefensible and most likely will either have to be abandoned or Russian forces will be destroyed in mass there. We don't really know which it will be at this point, but it is causing mass panic on the Russian side, so to them they think it started. To me, however, something rubs me the wrong way about saying that that is the counteroffensive in its own right. I have a feeling that this is leading up to a counteroffensive, but this isn't the whole counteroffensive on its own. So with that, I hope that does address the poll fairly well. I'm still going to have to remain within the I don't really know category, because I'm kind of leaning more so towards this isn't the counteroffensive, but at the same time, it may be the counteroffensive. Anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second poll says Russian actors Prighozin, Gherkin, and Dugin say that Ukraine has begun its offensive, and do they have a reason to lie?
Oh, dear.
Oh, dear. But it looks like 34% said yes, it benefits them to lie. 32% said no, lying doesn't help them. 20% said it may possibly benefit them, and 14% said unsure. And on this one, I really honestly don't see a reason why lying would help them on this one. It only makes them look weak, disorganized, and as if they're all cowards on the run. So I'm not sure exactly why they would want to lie about it. I think there's probably some truth to it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say I actually think that the Russians say the counteroffensive has begun. I don't know if that's true or not, because I'm still on the fence about that. But one thing is for certain, they are caving in. Wherever they are running into Ukraine, wherever Ukrainian forces are running into the Russian forces are caving in as we speak right now. And it appears that they're not even able to put up any kind of resistance whatsoever, at least in the area around Bakhmut. So that may be showing that the Russians are getting beaten so badly that they think there's no other way for us to be slapped around this badly unless a full-on counteroffensive is happening. I don't think it's true. I don't think the counteroffensive is happening right now, but I will say that the Russians are going to be losing Bakhmut probably within the next few days, and I think they've already kind of concealed the fate of Bakhmut, or at least it sounds like Prighozin has already started to believe that Bakhmut will probably fall. Well, at least the Russian-held part of Bakhmut will fall within the next few days, maybe even the next few weeks at the longest. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll says, Dugin, Putin's advisor, recommends full mobilization, nuke strikes, and to purge Russian dissenters. And what are your thoughts? 38% said Putin will dismiss this advice. 29% said Dugin's influence is decreasing. 17% said unsure, and 16% said Putin will accept this advice. And from the sounds of it, I'll be honest, it sounds like Dugin's influence is starting to decrease. However, it is concerning that he does have some kind of influence, even if it's minor, with the Kremlin. And he's suggesting some very extreme action to respond to what he feels is the beginning of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. He wants to go ahead and prepare nuclear strikes, which is obviously the most extreme option, and he wants to fully mobilize Russian society. Purging the Russian dissenters is not such a new thing. They've been doing that the whole time. But definitely kind of disturbing. So, Enforcer, what say you?
In my opinion, I would have to say is probably a mix of the bottom two. He's losing influence, and on top of that, the advice is going to be dismissed. Dugin is, I guess you could say, in the best description, he's like our channel, but the opposite like, you know, on the opposite side, and he's a really big influential one in Russia, and Putin kind of likes him for that reason. That's kind of like what Dugin is. And so, you know, while he's kind of an advisor, he's kind of just within that realm of people who just say stuff, kind of like we do, but we report the news, you know, so it's kind of a little different. We don't just sit there and lie like that guy does. We actually show video and picture evidence to back up what we say. But I don't think his advice is going to be followed at all, because it would make no sense whatsoever in a conventional war to whip out nukes whenever there's a defeat on the battlefield. And we've seen this happen so many times. We've heard this stuff so many times. I mean, hell, every single time the Ukrainians beat a Russian, like, you know, or shoot a Russian on the battlefield, almost everyone's always going, oh my God, here comes the nukes. I just don't think it's ever going to happen. I think even if the Russians get to the point where they do lose the war, I don't think we'll be seeing nuclear weapons used. I have a feeling that that's probably just off the table, regardless of what the implications may be, because then because, you know, the Russians will have already lost, but then that'll make the Russians look really weak, that they'll be threatening a non-nuclear country with nuclear weapons, and not only that, then that will draw in other countries from around the world, and it'll probably lead to the entire world coming to condemn them, because the Chinese are not going to want that precedent that nuclear powers can go around and bully other countries with nuclear weapons to, you know, do their way or the highway. That's not something the Chinese will stand for. That's not something the United States will stand for. That's not something that India, Pakistan, the United Kingdom, France, Israel, that's not what any nuclear power is going to stand for in the modern world, is a country being able to use their nukes to get their way, because that is a precedent that's going to lead to disastrous results just years down the road, and probably to a nuclear onslaught that would destroy the entire world, at least as we know it. So I don't think they'll be using nukes throughout most of the war, and I certainly think that advice won't be followed right there. And so with that, hope that does address that poll fairly well, and we are on, I think, into the question segment.
And yes, we are. We are all out of polls. So our very first super chat goes to Mark, Colonel of the LSA. Hey! He puts in a $120 super chat. And thank you very much, Mark, for the support. And he says, I don't think this is the counteroffensive, but still shaping. So I still think, as I said elsewhere, that was not a Bradley, but a turreted M113. And what are your thoughts?
And thank you so much for the support, Mark. And I did go back and look at that footage, and it kind of does look like a turreted M113, but at the same time, it's so similar looking to a Bradley, it's really hard for me to tell. So it really could be an M113, or it could be a Bradley. I'm not really sure on that one. So I'll just leave that up to y'all, whether y'all want to think that's a Bradley or not, because I'm not really sure on that one. And also, I don't think this is the counteroffensive either. I think that this is a prelude to the counteroffensive. And by the way, let me go to the Twitter real quick.
Peter, the Twitter's here.
And so let me go grab it. Let me go to profile. And here we go. Let me scroll here. So we actually came up with a list. Actually, Matthew came up with this list today, and it was a really smartly made one here about the stages of a counteroffensive. And these are largely the stages that a counteroffensive goes in, but this is, you know, listed out in an actual, I guess you could say, list. First would be the preparations and stockpiling, which is something you never really hear about. It just happens in the background. Second is the shaping of operations and attacks. So it's when they go through their battle planning. Once again, you don't really hear about that phase of the counteroffensive. Then you see the minor frontline advances, and then the major frontline advances. So at the beginning, you know, the minor frontline advances, maybe a feint in the opposite direction of where the counteroffensive will be happening. Maybe it's probing attacks where the counteroffensive is happening. It's one or the other. And then it goes into major frontline offensives where the actual counterattack begins and it starts to make its ground, like we saw in Balaklia or Kherson. After that, you see them begin to retain the front line, so they begin to try and shape however far they made it to the best possible terms where they have an advantage, and then they start regrouping their forces from there, solidifying a defensive line, and then they repeat this list of steps over again the next time they conduct an offensive. So right now, I would say, I would have to agree with you, Mark, I think we're more so in the third stage right now. Because what's happening in Bakhmut, it's not that far-fetched to say that the Ukrainians would be able to pull this off a little bit easier than what people expect. Because we know that Russian forces have been at the brink of exhaustion for practically months at this point, at least 2 to 3 months. They have been at the point of exhaustion. There's no ammo, there's no supplies. These forces are completely worn out. They're either completely green or the veterans are worn out and mentally shot, one or the other. And so I would say that it's most likely a minor, well, it's kind of weird to call it a minor frontline advance, but it's most likely a minor frontline advance that we're seeing right now. So it looks like we're in the third stage of what a counteroffensive would be, and the fourth stage is probably coming around in the future. It's just that the weather is so poor right now, too, and there's really no good way, at least if we're concerned about the weather, to say that a counteroffensive is imminent at this point within the next few weeks, because our initial counteroffensive window has been filled with poor weather. It's been nothing but rain, nothing but mud and slush, the Rasputitsa, and it's really hard to think that a counteroffensive will begin in conditions like these. The Ukrainians may be so confident, however, especially seeing these minor frontline advances, that they give the go-ahead to the major advances, but we don't really know. But I would say that right now, for certain, in my opinion, this is not the actual counteroffensive. This is a prelude to the counteroffensive that's coming up. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the mass amount of support, and also for Matthew making that list, because that's the first time I think I've seen anyone out there make a definitive list of how the counteroffensives work, and it was a really good one. It was really well researched, at least the bulletin points. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support, Mark, and helping this channel to keep on running, and also throwing in a really astute observation, in my opinion. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is from Jesus UCSB, who puts in a $100 super chat. And thank you very much, Jesus, for the continuous support. And he says, "Hola, I'm back from Cinco de Mayo, Cinco de Mayo.
Oh my God, what was that?
Cinco de Mayo, R&R NAFO break. But I hoped you liked my tank and the letter I sent. I have one request for Enforcer Matt. Remember the Mexican grito that I sent you? I want you to do it all for us and end it with a Viva LSA and yours, Jesus UCSB." And I have to admit, Jesus, I have forgotten how to do it. So I would have to go back and watch the video. But thank you very much for the support. And we do very much enjoy and appreciate you sending that tank. And I still have it over here on the left side of my model case. I love looking at it. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support, Jesus UCSB. And also, I hope you had a fun Cinco de Mayo. We got to correct that because Matthew is always saying Kazakhstan and other kinds of stuff on accident. But I hope you had a fun Cinco de Mayo, and I welcome you back. Also, we love the tank. We actually showed the video of Matthew showing the tank in the showcase, I think on last night's stream or so. And so it was an impressive model, I gotta say. Sadly, one of the little machine guns popped off of the top when it was being transported in the mail. But I'm a modeler, so I got the modeling glue. We're just gonna glue it back on top. We kept the machine gun we found it. But beyond that, it was an amazing model, and we thank you so much for sending it. And also, I would say that Matthew would be able to do it, but I don't think Matthew knows how to do it. But still, long live the LSA from our LSA tanker, and thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. That kind of support, Jesus UCSB, helps this channel to keep on rolling behind the scenes. Without folks like you, this wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Well, actually, the final one of this segment. And thank you so much once again for the mass amount of support, the model tank, and also being here with us tonight while we watch the Ukrainians obliterate the Russians in Bakhmut. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night.
Of the night? You're running out this early?
Yeah, we're leaving. I'm just kidding. We're on to the final question of this segment.
All right, and this one goes to Psyops, who puts in a $20 donation, and thank you very much, Psyops, for the support. He says, Psyops is safe and sound in Oklahoma. The tornadoes are not near me, and please consider donating blood to the Red Cross or other organizations, and some even get sent to Ukraine. And Orc Worship, go F yourself. Slava Snake Island Day. And also, I hope you are safe, Psyops, because I hear some tornadoes are running around that area out there.
And I got to thank you so much for the support as well, Psyops. I hope y'all are safe out there, because Oklahoma, as far as I believe, if I'm correct, Matthew, is in Tornado Alley.
Yes, I think it's under a tornado warning, too.
Yeah, and so hopefully you do stay safe out there, Psyops, because we've actually had several close run-ins with tornadoes in our lives, two of them passing within just a few miles of us. We could actually hear them outside, but luckily we never had the tornado run right over us, and we were very fortunate in that. But we understand completely how dangerous tornadoes are, so I hope you are staying safe out there. And if y'all ever wanted to do anything charitable, not just for Ukraine, but for possibly just the United States or your home country, wherever you may be, try and find your local Red Cross and donate blood to them, because that blood could end up saving someone's life, especially if they are gravely wounded by any kind of disaster that happens, or any event for that matter. That blood could save their life. And so if you would like, make sure to go out there and help out the Red Cross in donating blood. But with that, you make sure to stay safe out there. If we have any other viewers, and I know we have viewers in places like Texas, Oklahoma, and the Midwest in general, y'all make sure to stay safe out there. If you hear the tornado sirens, don't stand outside. I know it's an American thing for us to stand outside and wait for the tornado to get to us. We have done that sometimes. But make sure to get inside to a basement or something similar and just ride the thing out so that way we don't end up hearing that some LSA soldiers were lost in the tornadoes. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Sibes. Y'all make sure to stay safe out there. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into the Northeastern Front. And, you know, Deep State UA has been updating their map. Wait a minute, hang on. Yep, they have. I was having to make sure. I was like, wait a minute, hold up. So let me make sure they haven't updated it again. So here's the past 24 hours in the Northeast. As y'all can see, nothing happened. But one thing that did happen was a little bit of activity by Ukrainian forces. And first off, we saw the armed forces of Ukraine saving a small animal. It's they say it's a calf. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, it looks like a moose calf.
Poor thing. They call this a small animal?
They call this a small animal.
I would say medium to large size, maybe.
Man, that thing's like German Shepherd size. But still, great to see that they saved it from a little pit and got it on out of there. Who knows where its mother is? But it's always great to see the Ukrainians taking care of the animals and wildlife of Ukraine. So that way, hopefully, they can return them to their parents or just return them to the wild sometime in the future. With that, we're moving on to our next clip near Holmivka, where we saw a Stugna in action. You can see them lining up the Stugna right here. We can see a small group of Russian soldiers on the move. We can see them lining up the Stugna. You see the Russian infantry squad out there in the field. They're not really moving that quickly, and so this is going to be quite an easy shot for the Stugna operator. I thought it fired right there. I was like, wait a minute, it couldn't. Wait a minute, it did. Wow, that was the most quiet firing of a Stugna I've ever heard. You can see it gliding on its way almost. Wait, did it hit up there? Man, what was up there? I think there was a tank up there. I can't really see it well enough to be able to tell or not. And we can see Russian soldiers running off everywhere. We can't really tell what that was, but it was a Russian position or a Russian vehicle of some kind that was hit and destroyed by a Stugna in the area. And it sounds like they're pretty happy about it. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip just north of Svatove, and we're now going to be moving down to the area of Krasnoyarchinske, where we saw that a Russian tank was destroyed today. It was actually a It was destroyed by the 80th Brigade. I was about to say a T-80. And we can see the tank right there, and we can see it go nuclear. A nice glowing fire, blade. And with that, Igor! And it's great to see that the 80th Brigade was able to get themselves a Russian tank today. We don't know what kind it was. I was going to say it was a T-80. We can't really see it from here. It's too small of a vehicle. But let's see. Let me see if I... Nah, you can't make it out. It's just a blur. But we do see the thing go nuclear from the ATGM hitting it. So we do know that it was taken out. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip in Krasnoyarchinske and on down towards Kremenna, where we saw, and this was actually filmed by the Russians today, they got into a firefight with the Ukrainians, and I guess you could say, the roof opened up, and they left. They ran away. So, here's the clip. We can see this Russian soldier right here using what is kind of usually called a riot gun in Russia because it's used to fire tear gas and other similar things into crowds. But it can also be used in a war as a grenade launcher because it fires like a 40mm grenade. I forgot what this thing is called. I think it's a KH-23 because I just want y'all to know what this thing is because it is a little weird. So let me see. Nope, it's not a KH-23. Russian grenade shotgun. Let me see if we can find it here. Here it is, the KS-23. So this is the thing that we're looking at right here that the guy is using.
That's kind of a little bit rough.
Dude, this thing, honestly, man, this thing looks like a pipe gun from Fallout 4. It is really rough. But it appears that the guy is using it, at least to a small degree. But the grenades aren't landing that far in front of him if you watch. You see that one literally lands like 30 yards in front of him. I mean, here's some gunfire, and the gunfire starts picking up. And now the roof is opened up. The Ukrainians are laying down the fire, and these guys are running like a bat out of hell.
Чё? Давай, уходим.
We can see them yelling to the rest of the group where they gotta go. And we see them trying to scoot on. And they're getting on out there as the Ukrainians are laying down the heat on top of them. So even in Crimea, where we haven't seen any frontline changes, the Russians are running from the field after running into Ukrainian resistance. You know, the Russian military's like mode of operation, Matthew, is like this. We advance forward. Quick, turn around, please. We're under fire. We never expected this. But great to see that the Russians are running. I don't even know why they would upload this, because it does not make them look good. We didn't see them take out any Ukrainian soldiers. We saw all of their grenades fall short. And then it sounds like the Ukrainians started firing with an entire company of infantry right at them. So with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip. And now, oh, buddy. Now it's time for us to get on down. Oh, I forgot. We have one more thing. I'm sorry, everyone. I kind of just Jake braked y'all on that one there. We got to move back towards Slavyansk, where we saw a Ukrainian Tochka unit firing off their Tochka missiles. Also, we got to mute it because while that music is bussing, we can't play it. We can see them lining up their Tochkas right there, getting them ready to fire. And we're about to see them fire any minute now. And there we go, a double Tochka launch. Quite a sight, and really nice to see. I gotta say, I love watching the Ukrainians fire off their Tochkas, and we've seen that they've gotten some really good accuracy with these things a couple of times in the war. Sometimes these things are fired into Bakhmut, and we have seen them plaster some Russian forces there with their pretty decent accuracy, for that matter. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip. Now it's time for us to hang out here for the rest of the night, because Bakhmut is the place to be right now. Well, at least for Ukrainians, but for the Russians, it's the place to not be, and it appears that they're running from the lines as quickly as they can. Before we even get into the actual frontline videos, I want to make sure that we let the Russian bots know that this is really happening. You see, I've seen a lot of people, and some people who pretend to be pro-Ukrainian, but I think they're only pro-Ukrainian in like sheep's clothing, and they're not really pro-Ukrainian. But I've seen a lot of people saying today that although this has been happening for 2 to 3 days and has been admitted by everyone on every side that this is happening in Bakhmut, that it's just not true. It's not happening. And while, you know, at least according to these people, they quote-unquote support Ukraine, this is just blatant falsehood. And we actually have another phone call from Prighozin today where he states that the front lines are collapsing. So, one second, before well, actually, I'm going to let this play. Because the translation's at the bottom. Well, hang on, I actually got to do both things, because I got to read the translation and then also do something else. So let me do this one real quick. Let me go grab that and get that ready. 1 second. I got to go get the... Dang it, I got to go get the right one. Hang on. Here we go. Let me go grab that. Let me get this ready. Matthew knows what's happening, probably.
Is it the Wojak?
Yeah, I'm getting the Wojak. Right? All right, so now it's time. Wait, hang on. You know what? We're going to make this even better. Y'all know what Prighozin looks like. It's not like y'all need to be introduced to him. All right, so there you have it. There's a little Wojak, and here's what Prighozin said today about the frontline situation. Dang it, it wasn't on me. 1 second. The situation on our flanks is the absolute worst it could possibly be. The territories which were paid for with the blood and the lives of our comrades in arms over the course of many months, where we slowly advance by a matter of tens or hundreds of meters each day, are now being thrown away practically without a fight by those who are supposed to be holding our flanks. You heard it from him. They're falling apart. He's even saying it. The flanks are gone, and from what we can tell, the flanks really are gone. And I'll show y'all real quick what we've heard. So many of y'all may remember, and I'll actually do this real quick as well. Let me go get yesterday's map and show y'all what we've changed from our normal weekly map to this one, at least on our frontline approximations. So let me go view this one on YouTube. And then let me go get the map link from the description. 1 second, y'all. Let me go grab it, and here we go. And so, this is last week's map. This is the map that we had from about last night. And this is the map we have today. And so here's a comparison in between Bakhmut today and Bakhmut yesterday. So this is what we approximated the Russian front lines to look like yesterday. This is what they look like today. And this is kind of a really rough approximation of where the Russians are now based off of what we've been told. But we've been hearing what the Russians would consider an absolute nightmare situation. And I will say this because it's been so long since this was reported. About 12 hours ago, on Russian Telegram pages, it was reported that Ukrainian forces were already pushing through Klishkivka and were well on their way out of the village of Klishkivka, and they were facing nearly no resistance. And all of the units in that area that were a part of the 72nd Brigade are practically fleeing the front line. And of course, we don't really have anything to go off of there in video evidence yet. We haven't seen any flags raised in Klishkivka, and if they are, we won't see those for probably another 2 days or so. But they've made it well beyond Klishkivka at this point, because that was 12 hours ago, and according to the Telegram channels of the Russian, I guess you could say, war bloggers that are getting information from the 72nd Brigade, they said that the 72nd Brigade quoted that the Ukrainians were receiving practically no resistance at this point, and they were moving forward almost unopposed on the southern flank. And so this may be, at this point, what the front lines look like. And the Ukrainians have reversed nearly 3 months of effort that it took for the Russians to move from the T-0503 highway from Ultradivka towards the highway perimeter, and they've wiped it out in probably the course of 24 hours. We've seen on Deep State that has not been adjusted in such a way. We can see that the Ukrainians are reclaiming ground here, and we have good reason to note that Deep State UA's map may not be perfectly up to date. It's probably about a day or two behind right now, about 24 to 48 hours behind, because of operational security reasons. Because they gave an exact update as to where the Ukrainians were, that could be a little rough. We're not even giving an exact update, but this is our closest approximation of what the front lines would have looked like about 12 hours ago. From at least the information we were getting from Russian Telegram channels, among a few other sources. So suffice it to say, Bakhmut is collapsing, and we're expecting that the Russian forces in the center, at least in the city, will not be able to survive that long, because at the same time that the southern front is moving at rapid speed, we have heard that there has been another offensive that's been started, a small offensive, by Ukrainian forces in the north, and not to get into the exact details up there, considering that that one started at least within the last 24 hours, but it also appears that they are moving forward without any real opposition either, and they will also be making it well behind Bakhmut, probably even towards the area of, well, you know, not to put it too far back there, but towards Pokrovsk, but we don't really know, and we haven't seen the progress they've made, and of course we don't want to get into the exact details of where they are and what they're doing, because that could be an operational security risk and end up getting people potentially killed if we are correct and the Russians use that information. So we don't want to give the Russians anything to work with, but that's the situation we're looking at right now. Yesterday...
So the other day when folks were saying that a Russian unit ran off from Bakhmut, was it just one unit, and have any more run off since?
From what we understood, what was happening yesterday is that the southern flank was being engaged by the 93rd and the 3rd Brigade, and they were fighting the 72nd Russian Infantry Brigade, or Mechanized Brigade, and once they crossed the canal zone, the 72nd Brigade almost imploded on itself, and started to retreat in mass, and that's why we heard Prighozin saying that the 72nd Brigade had given up an area nearly 5 kilometers wide and 1 kilometer deep, and according to Ukrainian sources in the 3rd Brigade, that was actually about 1.5 kilometers deep and about 9 kilometers wide of ground. Either way, it was really just yesterday the 72nd Brigade that was going into a retreat, or at least being pushed back. Today, it appears that parts of the Wagner unit and the 72nd, from what we know for certain, are routing off of the field right now, and they are almost not even turning around to fight. They are just running off the field. And in the north, we don't really know what's going on up there, at least at the moment. From what we know, the front lines are stable up there, but we do know that there is a Ukrainian offensive going on there. There is video footage showing that Ukrainian forces are advancing in the area and taking prisoners as well, but we don't have exact details as to where they've made it, because that also may be a bit of an operational security risk for those forces in that area. But that's the situation we're looking at.
So it's mainly Wagner forces left and barely any Russians at this point?
Barely any, well, at least barely any Russians that are standing their ground, and the Wagner that's still holding the interior of Bakhmut. So to use Deep State's map, because Deep State's map is far more accurate in the city of Bakhmut than ours is, Wagner is still holding this, which is the city of Bakhmut, but here in the south, it could be anything. The Ukrainians could have made it from Klishkivka, they'd still be in Klishkivka, or they could have made it all the way to Pitny or Vesela Dolnya. We don't really know at this point, but this whole entire area here is in a state of collapse at this point.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is because since Wagner is so demoralized at this point, because basically they've been left there for dead, almost, or at least what we're being told, it seems like it should be pretty easy just to steamroll straight through there and push them back.
And I would say so. And one problem though, is that you're not taking one thing into account, Matthew, and this is the one thing I think is going to end up destroying Bakhmut, is that the Russians sent out that letter saying that if, and this was directed towards the Wagner, if a unit retreats from their current positions right now, it will be claimed to be treason. And so I think if the Wagner unit even tries to pull off the line to move elsewhere and reposition themselves, Prigozhin's going to be scared that that's going to be called treason. So he's going to instead stubbornly sit inside of Bakhmut, probably until the city's encircled, and then surrender the Wagner unit to the Ukrainians, or at least what's left of it at that point.
I would be kind of shocked at that, for him to surrender all the forces. I wouldn't put it past reality, but I would have to see that to believe it.
Well, think about it. He has two options right now. Either he can surrender to the Ukrainians and probably end up in prison, but he'll still be alive, or he pulls the Wagner off of the line to try and move them. Putin calls that treason, and then he probably ends up falling out of a window and he's dead. So he has two options, either to live or to die. And if it means that he has to surrender the entire Wagner unit to try and live at least in prison, I think he may actually take that option.
Maybe so. Or they might all get killed in battle. They might not surrender.
One or the other. It could be either way at this point. It's anyone's guess. And I see some people saying that this map is probably too optimistic. And I think we actually have the Telegram post where a pro-Russian blogger said that the Ukrainian forces about 12 hours ago were in Klishkivka. But we've got to get through all the clips in the north and move our way south first. Well, actually, we'll start in the south, and then we'll move our way north. So starting off near Zaitsevo, we got our first glimpse today at the panics that are occurring on Russian telegrams about what's happening in the Bakhmut area. And so, to read this for y'all, and I know this is a very small text, but I'll read what it says. This is the translated English version of the Telegram text right here. There is a fierce shelling of Gorlovka, which is Orlivka. Perhaps the offensive has begun or is about to begin. I remind you, I predicted the main blow on the Zaporizhia front, auxiliary on the Kherson, and possibly in Donetsk. Distracting strikes can be inflicted on the old border with the Belgrade, Kursk, Bryansk regions in order to capture several settlements and provoke the RF armed forces to storm them until they are completely destroyed. And then moving on from that, the offensive of Ukraine has begun, according to another Telegram blogger from Russia. Columns of equipment of the armed forces of Ukraine, they walk quietly, no one hits them. Cars with equipment were moving before, no one hit them. They are advancing from the flanks near Bakhmut, and Zaporizhia has been evacuated. That's also an entirely other part of the front line, but according to this blogger, the Ukrainians are moving forward once again completely unopposed. They're not even under fire, according to this guy, on both flanks near Bakhmut. Guys, these creatures have sold everything. The businesses have climbed in assholes. I know that will not betray the country. All people are with you. So he's trying to give like a little bit of a word of hope to the Russian forces that are still there, but I think they're too busy running away to really read anything. Moving on into the next Telegram poster. This guy is called Andrei Piantolsky. He says, if Prigozhin is not killed in the coming days, then it is he, as the interim ruler of Russia, which I don't know where he's getting that from, who will sign the agreement on the organized withdrawal without weapons of Russian troops from the territory of Ukraine in a few weeks. Now, this one's about as far-fetched as I could say it goes. I don't even think it'll go like that. But it is very interesting to see that pro-Russian bloggers are getting to the point they believe that Russia has practically collapsed at this point. And I think it may lead to the Russians thinking that the war is over, because the Russians have put so much weight on Bakhmut. Both sides really put a lot of weight on Bakhmut, but the Russians more so than the Ukrainians, that the Russians may view this as the end of the war. If they lose Bakhmut, that's it. The war is hopeless from that point forward. And moving on to our last Telegram guy that we, had in the Orlivka post, this guy, who's called Vonkor Kitten Z, said as of the evening, the situation in the Bakhmut direction remains difficult. He called the Ukrainians a very creative name right there and said, managed to develop a breakthrough near Bodganova. Or Bodganovka, which is towards, Klishkivka. At the moment, Bandera resources, which is what they call the Ukrainians, are trying to win back the successes achieved as much as possible. I'm sorry, actually, that's the Wagner forces of Bandera. Sorry about that. But they're saying that the Wagner's trying, but from what we've heard, they're not. And so moving on from the Telegram post where we can see the Russians are freaking out, we're moving on into our next clip where we saw the Ukrainians did take pictures today on the other side of the canal zone near abandoned Russian positions. So we do know that the canal zone and the highway perimeter is being overrun as we speak right now. The Russians are in full retreat from this area because there are pictures of Ukrainian forces here. And we can, of course, see the typical kind of trash that comes with a Russian position. And also a load of ammo.
Say, no doubt that's Russian with all that trash looking like a dumpster pile over there. Oh, my God.
The mini nuke that's just sitting near the bunker. But yes, we can see that they are being overrun in this area, and this does come from that highway perimeter region. We're not going to say exactly where, and the marker is not accurate. It's about a mile off, but we do see that they are falling back and they are giving up their positions. That's one thing that is for certain. And so moving on into the next bit of news, we once again saw more freakouts on Telegram about what was going on in this direction. And so to read this one, the Kyiv regime has begun implementing an operation to encircle our forces in the Bakhmut direction. Also, if you can read this, if it is big enough for you, Artemovsk is the Russian name for Bakhmut, so I'm just translating it over into Bakhmut every time I read it. The head of the Wagner PMC has repeatedly spoken about these plans. I already wrote that the enemy plans to attack the flanks to reach the rear of our forces located in Bakhmut and its environs. Today, Sasha Semenov announced the breakthrough of the armed forces of Ukraine in the direction of Berkovka and Yagodnoy. Our forces retreated from their positions. Another strike in the Klishkivka area, also with local success. Klishkivka, that is also the bastardized spelling in Russian of Klishkivka in the Ukrainian spelling right there. And that is not all. In the area of Soledar, the enemy units with the support of armor groups in each of which there were 2 to 3 tanks each, he was able to organize a breakthrough. So we also know about some kind of a breakthrough, like I said earlier, up there, but we don't know how successful it's been. Now the militants of the armed forces of Ukraine are trying to gain a foothold in their positions. The situation is difficult. Moving on from that, in the next 24 hours, apparently, the Kyiv regime will begin to increase its efforts in the south in the Orikov area in order to tie up our troops with battles in the Guliapolya area in order to break through the first line of defense. Let's assume that the enemy's counteroffensive has begun, at least according to this guy. This is what he's seeing. Moving on into the next bit of news, we also heard that near Mayorsk, the enemy also went on the attack. There are active clashes since the morning. There are reports from War Gonzo sources on the front line about local successes of the armed forces of Ukraine and on this sector of the front. At the moment, our units are making attempts to push the Ukrainians back. They have not succeeded in gaining a foothold. The progress was relatively insignificant. That, however, alarm bells are here too in the Gorlovsky direction, so Zinya is right. We can assume that the counteroffensive has begun. And once again, showing that the Russians are freaking out so badly about what the Ukrainians have been able to achieve, at least over the past day, they think the offensive has begun in full. And moving on to our next telegram, well, actually, that's what the Russians believe the counteroffensive will look like. We can't really say that for certain, but, this direction here, I mean, hell, at least moving into Klishkivka, that would be somewhat correct, at least up till that point. And then moving on to the next one, you can actually see the original Russian post on Telegram that is talking about what the Ukrainians are doing. So once again, we can see that there is a little bit of a freak out on at least the side of the Russians, and a lot of the pro-Russian bloggers are getting news and information from frontline sources that the front is collapsing, at least at this moment for the Russians. And so with that, we're going to be...
they caused a hell of a panic earlier today. I saw some people trying to flee from some of the occupied regions earlier.
And hell, I mean, like, they are causing a panic. It's an absolute freakout down there. And moving on up towards Bakhmut itself, we also saw what the outskirts of Bakhmut were looking like today as well. Well, actually, more so we heard what the outskirts of Bakhmut sounded like during this, I guess you could say, push by the Ukrainians. I'm not going to call it a counteroffensive, but by this push, we can hear the sounds of massive firefights occurring as the Ukrainians are sweeping these people off the field. And they are giving them everything and the kitchen sink out there. And we see this Ukrainian unit moving forward, but they are currently not engaged.
I wonder if they're going to let that sink in.
Let that sink in. Picture of a sink at the front door.
Yes.
But y'all can see right here, at least from the sounds, the sights, and also the posts from the Russians, and also the reports from Prighozin himself, the southern front has certainly entered a state of collapse, and the units in that area are in a rout. The north, however, is still unknown at this moment how badly they're doing. But moving on behind the lines, we also saw the 93rd conducting an MLRS barrage in that direction of the front lines, most likely to continue to support the Ukrainian pushes. And we can see their grads firing off right there. Grad artillery is incredibly important at times like this. Their barrages are not incredibly accurate, but they do well in, I guess you could say, suppressing enemy forces so that way yours can continue to advance. And that's probably the purpose that the 93rd is firing off these MLRSs for. With that, we're moving on into our next clip, more so towards the front lines again in the area of Ivanivsky, where we saw a Ukrainian driver with incredible skill driving down the highway perimeter. Once again, while we think that the Russians have largely been pushed off the highway perimeter, the Ukrainian drivers are still going at utmost speed, just in case if there is any way that they would be targeted or hit while on the highway. And we can see this guy right here pulls the sickest drift. So here's the clip. When you see him driving at about full speed down the highway, the trunk flips over right there. It actually almost does a whole flip. And this driver somehow recovered the flip, drove past the next wrecked vehicle on the highway, and kept on going. What a legend! Goodness. Let's watch that again. You can hardly see it, but look. There it goes. It does the flip. He recovers the flip, and he keeps going. And that thing looks like a full-scale... Yeah, this was a Ukrainian, and that looks like a full-scale supply truck, too. Like, you can see, like, the canvas cover on the back of it and everything. Look at that. Dang.
I don't know how they did it.
I don't even know how they did it either. That either was a miracle, or we're watching the Stig driving a Ukrainian supply truck down that highway. One or the other. That was incredible. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and now into the city. And I gotta say this, the city is a hellhole, and of course a battle zone, you know, of course, like the rest of the Battle of Bakhmut, but it's not going to be the part of the lines that is of the greatest concern. The flanks are now what's of most concern and really worth picking apart. But we did see that firefights and activity did continue inside of the city today as the Ukrainians continue to hold back the bulwark of Wagner forces inside the city, like in this clip here. And so here's the video. We see the Ukrainians looking out the windows and getting ready to fire on the Russians. You see them looking outside across this park, and it appears that Russian forces may be in the building across the street. The Ukrainians are already firing at it with the AT-4s and other kinds of supporting weapons. Making sure to keep...
boosted.
What was that? I can't hear you over my shattered eardrums. Matthew, the Wagner has got no ammo. I can't say the other one. You know what I'm wanting to say. No ammo.
Can you imagine if it's this loud over headphones, how bad this must be in person?
Oh man, these poor guys are probably bleeding out the ears. And they continue to fire. Dang, and they even got some rock going on there as they fire off another one. And that's the end of the clip, but of course the fighting continues in the city, as we can see right there. Moving on into our next clip, we also saw that while the Ukrainians are pushing on the flanks, and I also want to make a quick note here, this video was made by Radio Free Europe on the 6th of May. The situation has greatly changed since then, because they say that the Ukrainians are only making minimal progress in this video, but we know right now they are making landfall progress, at least of the past 2 days. So the video is a little dated, but it does talk about the Russian artillery situation as the battle goes on, and so here's the clip. Amid gains, Ukrainian forces endure shelling and casualties near Bakhmut. Ukrainian units say they have taken some Russian positions, but they still face about 500 Russian artillery strikes each day. Lift his legs, lift his back. What kind of injuries do you see most often? The injuries are very diverse, from ordinary contusions to severe wounds of the chest. Limbs with compound fractures, collapsed lungs, with head injuries too. This frontline medical center is treating 10 wounded Ukrainian soldiers. Anton suffered wounds to his leg and face. I was sitting in a trench and a shell landed right near me. Me and another guy were badly injured. They pulled out one guy who was badly injured and loaded him into a car. You never get away without wounded and no losses. As I understand, you are pushing them out. Yes, how else can it be? We need to somehow defend Ukraine. We need to push the enemy out so they will not effing advance. The front is constantly in flux. Sometimes there are more casualties, sometimes fewer. There are many minor injuries, so the percentage of medium and severe injuries is very small. Many guys can return to their units. One unit scored a trophy left behind by Russians in a trench. They say the enemy was pushed out of 2 fields near a key road out of Bakhmut, and since this video was made, it's been a lot more than that. The fields were very important. We can say that they were thrown back from the quote-unquote road of life. Now we're holding these positions. Accurate Ukrainian artillery is key to the recent successes, says the unit leaders. Ukraine claims Russian infantry losses have been heavy, and they most likely have. And that's the end of the clip from Radio Free Europe, but giving us a good look at what Ukrainian trauma units are dealing with on the front lines. And of course, while the Ukrainians are making this unbelievable progress near Bakhmut and reversing from what we know all of the efforts of the Wagner over the past 8 months, it is still without question that Ukrainian forces are taking casualties, either in killed or wounded. And you have to give it to these guys. These brave men who sometimes lay down their lives in these fields near Bakhmut are changing the face of the war as we know it, and maybe changing the course of history itself, and of course, how long this war may last. And with that, we're going to be moving on into our last clip in Bakhmut, where we saw the tanks continuing to work in the city in support of the infantry. And also, by the way, before we get to this, I wanted to make a note because I actually didn't see it during that video, but I just looked over the live chat. I got to thank Spencer so much for that support. Yes. I just saw that, and I saw everyone in the live chat also saying, Spencer, good God! And I got to say, thank you so much, Spencer, for that massive support. Of course, we'll be getting to it in a little bit when we get to the question segment, which shouldn't be that long from now. But I want to thank you so much once again right here before we even get to the question segment. But with that, here's the Ukrainian tanks in action. And of course we have to mute it, but you can see the Ukrainian tank out there. It appears to be a T-84 Oplot. And we can see it lining up its gun. We can see the Ukrainian soldiers just sitting by and enjoying that the armor is nearby and supporting him. And we can now see the tank fire. And we can see the soldiers just joking around, looking at the camera, looking at the tank. And we can tell that the Ukrainians, they like the armor. Everyone loves the armor. It gives that vital kind of extra bit of support, that extra high explosive boom that allows a couple of more Russians to start pushing up sunflowers. And we can see that they're in very high spirits, even in the middle of the battle of the city. they still are joking and laughing as the tank is out there, making sure to make their job just a little bit easier. With that, we're going to be moving on out of the city and on up into the northern area. And the northern area is filled with mystery right now. I can't really tell y'all what the Ukrainians have been able to achieve up here within the past 24 hours. It is a bit of an OPSEC issue, and Deep State is also not mentioning anything that has happened in this direction. But it seems as though the Ukrainians are meeting the same kind of progress in the north, at least from the video evidence, as they have been in the south. We'll, of course, have to wait until tomorrow to confirm whether that is true or not, but here are some of the clips we've been able to gather from this area. Starting off with our first one of the 100th Brigade capturing Russian soldiers in the offensive on the western ridgeline. We can see them yelling into the distance to the Russian soldiers.
Look at all the debris on the ground. Jeez.
This is Verdun. This looks like Verdun.
Сюда бігом, блядь! Ближче сюди йди, я сказав! 912, взяли полоненого.
What's that dude wearing on the left?
Let's see. Good question. Let's go back and look at him again.
Oh, is he standing behind a tree stump or something?
Oh, yeah, that's what he's doing. He's standing behind a tree stump.
I was like, Slender Man?
912, взяли полоненого.
And we now see the Russians coming forward with their hands up right out here where the mouse cursor is. Now they're behind the tree. We hear some artillery in the distance, but we can see that this Russian unit has surrendered.
Скільки там людей? Все, блядь, знімай броню. Не стріляй, блядь. Знімай броню, я сказав. Блядь, знімай броню.
We now see the Russian soldier reaching to unclip his vest and take off his helmet.
Зніми, блядь, броніка, йди сюди, я сказав. Скільки тут людей вообще? Скільки там ще людей в цій посадці є?
We now see the Russian giving them some kind of information. I think this guy is actually ratting out the rest of his guys out there and telling the Ukrainians exactly where they are.
So you would too if you saw Slender Man standing right in front of you.
Man, this guy right here is the Russian Takashi 69. He is a rat.
He's the rat.
He is the rat, man. He sat there and he said, so they actually got a ration box right over there about 30 meters that way, pointing. But still, with that, the 100th Brigade was able to capture a prisoner today, which is great to see as they continue to push forward through that western ridgeline. Now, I will say we don't get exact into the markings and locations of these videos, but this is on the western ridgeline, because we have seen this tree line many times before and how heavily charred and mired it has been by the shellings and firefights that have occurred on that western ridge. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and on up into the general direction of Krasnohora. Once again, I want to heavily emphasize that all of these markers up here are almost completely inaccurate. If they show Ukrainian forces, I have made sure that if we ever had a good indication of where those forces might be, these markers are off by several miles, so they're not actually showing exactly where these forces are. But moving into this clip, we can once again see Ukrainian forces assaulting Russian positions here in the northern side of the, I guess you could say, of the city. We can hear the APC laying down machine gun fire. And Mark, if this was the tank you were talking, well, the APC you were talking about earlier, whether it was a Bradley or an M113, this one, I believe, is an M113. And we hear the APC coming to a stop. And we hear the machine gun continuing to lay down its thick fire. We hear the loading gate going down in the back, and off they go, right out into the open, right into the fight. And also, really quickly to show these two, this is something that I think is very important to note, because there's been a debate as to what we were seeing the other day. Was it a Bradley or was it an M113? These are Dutch YPR 765s, which are heavily based, well, really, they are M113s, but they're heavily modified M113s. And so, in some cases, they do heavily resemble a Bradley. So it may be that what we were seeing was a very low resolution very zoomed out video of a YPR 765 at work. However, if we go back a little bit further, you can see right here as they exit the vehicle, the back supports on the YPR 765, these back little, I guess you could call them crates or boxes, whatever's attached to them, they aren't the same shape as the one we saw on that video the other day of the 3rd Brigade in action in air from a drone. These were a different shape on that APC in particular, so it's still a bit of a question as to whether that one was a Bradley or a YPR 765. They do look similar in some instances, and probably from a distance they look very uncannily similar, but these both are YPR 765s. We now see them getting out of the back of the APC, and we can see them advancing right into the tree line immediately. Man, and look at them go. It's just a swarm.
This looks pretty cool.
Yeah, this is cool. We now see them setting up on the tree line and getting ready to engage the Russian forces. When you see the YPRs back there, it seems as though they may be backing up and leaving the field, and they are.
Is it normal to be dropped off in a spot like this, or is this kind of exposed?
This is pretty normal, because dropping them off in the middle of a field would be bizarre, but dropping them off near a tree line, it gives them relative, not really cover, but concealment, so it makes it a lot harder for the Russians to find them and figure out where they are exactly. So this is actually pretty normal as far as the field warfare goes in Ukraine.
Looks like a damn tough spot to start from.
Well, oddly enough, this is the best spot they'll ever get, most likely, in this part of the front. And that's really rough when you think about it, because that means the fighting only gets worse from there. But when you see them now starting to push into the tree line, and you hear firefights occurring on the other side. You hear the firefight still continuing, the cameraman looking around and trying to observe his surroundings. It sounds like they're engaging the Russians directly across from them in the tree line. We now hear some orders being yelled out, and we can now see the cameraman repositioning himself to look in another direction, but we haven't seen him move yet. With that, that's the end of the clip, but once again showing some of the actions that the 3rd Brigade has been taking on the northern flank of Bakhmut. Moving on into our next clip, we once again saw a continuation of fighting in this area of the front. And I have to mute this one because it had music overlaid on it, but when you see the soldier, and it appears he is prone on the ground, he's moving forward, and now he's crouching and running. He's laying down fire on this trench and continuing to advance. We can see some Ukrainian soldiers not that far behind him. It appears that this may be our point man of the squad. We can now see him lobbing him a grenade. And he is now about to chunk it down the trench and right at the Russians in here. He chucks it down the trench. We can see smoke floating over the top of it. And in a second, we're about to see that explosion of the grenade. And actually, the smoke's so thick, we really couldn't see it. He's now advancing into the trench. But before we move on from here, I have to make sure of something. One second, let me drag this off screen, because I want to make sure that this one doesn't get age restricted either. And I'm very lucky I pulled that one off screen, because that one would have gotten us age restricted. So that was Russian roulette, but with video clips right there. We can't show all the rest of it because the inside of that trench was a little filthy, to say the least, so we can't really show that to y'all. If y'all do want to see it, though, you can go into the link in the description below, and you can click on that exact marker on the map and watch it for yourself. Because, hell, the map is free for everyone to use. There is always a brand new map that we make every single night, putting down markers of where Ukrainian forces are and what they're doing along with Russian forces every single night. You just have to go into the description and go down to the map link, click on that link, and it'll bring you exactly to this map. And you can go through and watch every single clip at your own speed. With that, we're going to be moving on into the Krasnohora direction, where we saw Russian forces being hit by artillery, most likely the 3rd Brigade's artillery. We're going to have to mute that. But we can see the tree line where the Russians are. We can see a couple of them moving around where the mouse cursor is. And we're about to see them cease movement. We can see that right there. With that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, the 3rd Brigade landing that pretty effective artillery. Moving a little bit further behind the lines, we also saw some Russians trying to hide from an artillery strike. Well, more so a loitering munition. And it appears that the guy wasn't really that successful at his job. We can see him getting behind a burnout BMP-1. And we can see the drone coming on in. And we can actually see that it's slowing down to make sure to get this just right. And now it's coming in right at the bottom of the BMP. And poof. Very nice. Oh my god, I never saw this part. What the hell? Alright.
Jeez.
Oh,
that's like nightmare fuel.
That's a meme, dude. That's... Oh, wait a minute, you're lagging there. Are you good?
Yeah.
Oh, you lagged out for just a second. Dude, you know, this seems like those screens at the bowling alley whenever you get a strike. That's like what they show right there. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip. We can see that that Russian didn't really do that well. And on into our last clip in Bakhmut, where we saw the 93rd Brigade blowing up all of the frontline ammo depots that they were able to find over the night. And so here's the clip. Also, I'm going to have to mute that because we can hear the Nokia ringtone playing. That may be copyrighted. But we can see them landing artillery onto believed Russian ammo depots and trying to wipe them out. And it appears that they did hit one. It's beginning to burn very nicely, almost like a flare. And we can see the infrared footage and the normal footage of the same ammo detonation. It appears that they were able to hit some kind of an open-air ammo depot. I do not believe it's landmines. It's probably some other kind of ammunition, maybe small arms ammo, because it is burning for a pretty good while. And we can also see the occasional tracer flying out of it. Now we can see a bit of a larger explosion, maybe an artillery shell or something similar exploding, maybe mortar rounds. But very nice fireworks. And for a great occasion, the Ukrainians are sweeping these guys off the field. And they've set up the fireworks for the Ukrainians to celebrate. What better way to win the Battle of Bakhmut than with some fireworks? That's great. It's a perfect all-around event. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again showing the Fighting 93rd doing their part in the battle. We're now going to be moving out of Bakhmut and the amazing actions that have happened there today from all units involved in that battle, and on down the front line and into the area of Avdiivka, where we saw that the Ukrainians were still dropping bomblets onto Russian forces here, but I don't think they're doing much anymore, because I think all eyes are now on Bakhmut again. So here's the clip of the Russians near this railroad track, and also y'all will love this because this would work well with Sam Elliott. One second, let me actually play that back with the audio. Have you ever wanted to find yourself a Russian? Well, today's your day, partner. I gotta mute that because it's copyrighted, but you see the Russians made a hole, a dugout right near a railroad track. The Ukrainians dropped a bomblet, hole in one, right into it, and that outpost will no longer be occupied.
Every time they hit a Russian, you can say, 3 more days, Papa. Do I look like a real boy, Papa? And then pull up the Wojak and
yeah,
show
here
a
it
picture
is.
of it.
Whoa!
There it is.
Say the line, say the line.
3 more days, Papa.
Oh, man. Funny little Russian Wojak. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and on to our next one, kind of in the Avdiivka area, where we saw that the Russians have gotten so bad off, they've now created a bicycle unit. I'm just kidding. It's a Russian unit, but they're using bicycles because they're broke.
Oh, that's
now I gotta mute that one quick. Well, you can see them making their way down the road, all on bicycles, and they're that bad off. They can't even find the farm tillers to move around the little carts anymore. Now they have to use bicycles. Every day, the Russians get closer and closer to just literally being, let me think of a poor country, North Korea. So with that, we're now moving on from that little bit of news near Avdiivka, and further on down the line near Pisky, where we saw some more Russians got destroyed in this area today as well. Now you can see the Russians making out for the fields and going on their usual trail. You see some Russians just acting like it's a normal day in the village. For the Russians, this probably is a normal day in the village because it looks like a normal Russian village. But for the Ukrainians, this is a village ripe with targets, and they're going to be taking them all out. Because, Matthew, you know what these targets are. Easy targets.
Yeah, I was just about to say they look like they're running like Pengu would, like from the cartoon.
You know what they are? Yeah, they're waddling like that. They're learning how to
When a
walk.
bomb hits.
They're learning how to walk from Mr. Lunchtime. We can see some Russians moving down here near this building.
There's one sneaking around back.
And we now see some more mortar shells and artillery landing in the area. We now see the Russian waddling back across the street, mortar shell landing right in front of him, and it appears that his waddle was stomped dead in his tracks. That's it. Oh, but oh man, it looks like he's turned around. He's defeatedly limping back.
Oh, now he's like a horsey.
So he's making his way back, and we can see that the Ukrainian artillery is doing a great job. We're now moving on down to Marinka, where we saw the Ukrainians firing a TOW-2. And there it is, the TOW.
Hey, he's getting close to it, yeehaw.
Let's listen to that one more time, man. That's what it sounds like when I step on a Lego. I love it, man. And it's great to see that TOW launch in operation, too. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip in the area of Marinka and on down towards Staryl-Manivka, where we saw that the Ukrainians were also able to knock out a Russian heavy towed artillery piece. Oh, chat music.
All right.
XL. Well, they can see the Gyansen here, and it's eating raw meat, and it's about to eat raw steel. Poof. There goes the Gyansen. It's up in flames now, and the ammo's also going with it. With that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, the Ukrainians are doing their best all over the place. We're now going to be moving on into the area behind the lines near Doprilia, where we saw a Ukrainian MiG-29 in flight. And here it is. Chad music ensues. I gotta tell you, man, every time we watch these guys flying, it's always like, man, that would be a really cool thing to do, is to fly MiG-29s, or really any aircraft for that matter.
That would be cool. You know, really, Ukrainians really like their trap, though. Like, they put a trap beat over almost every war video they have.
Man, every single time there is war footage, a Ukrainian somewhere goes, you know what would make this even better? Chad music. And so he goes, absolutely. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. And I gotta say, while we're joking about how they put Chad or trap music on everything, if that's their taste, that's their taste. No one can trash on them for it, because hell, that music is leading them to do things that we've never seen in war before, and I've got to give them a lot of credit. So if they like that music, that's good on them. It's not bad either. It's just that it's been played for 442 days. I think that's the part that's kind of getting to us, and also it makes it to where we have to mute like every video. But then again, the Russians do that.
It beats the TikTok music.
Oh no! Oh no!
But anyways, we're moving on to Kharkiv, where we also saw the Russians got mortared today, and they left behind a drone. And also, everyone's saying it's Europe. They love that kind of music. You know, when we went to Britain, I never heard that music ever. I actually heard, like, you heard rock a lot. You didn't hear, like, that kind of music, like that genre of music. But anyways, with that. Look at this guy. He said, you mean the Ukrainians are running scared and losing after we've been watching the Russians literally running on film for the past 3 days? Matthew, get that guy. Thank you. That's
I think he's confused. But not anymore.
We do not want to see you here again. Bailiff, whack it. But anyways, you can see.
Call an ambulance. Call an ambulance.
But not for me. And we see the Russian drone operators out here. They're about to be saying the same thing. We can see them resting under a tree, and we can see him going, hey, let's all group up and enjoy the lilac split. And that's not good for them. The drone takes off, and they get under the tree. They're going to have a good day out of the park. But this day is about to be briefly interrupted as the Ukrainian drone drops a bomb load on them. They go running off, and they just leave behind their drone. They never recover their drone. They just run off. With that, that's the end of the clip, but we can see some drone-on-drone warfare going on there, and instead of the drones attacking the drones, the drones are attacking the drone operators. That is advanced warfare. What you were saying here is advanced warfare. We're now going to be moving on into the area of Kherson. And, you know, just in case of the Russians' woes were really bad, they're getting worse, as a bridge-laying vehicle was spotted on the move in the Kherson Oblast today. And here it is. I'm going to have to mute that. But we can see the bridge-laying vehicle getting onto the back of this truck here, and we can see it carrying the entire Antonovsky Bridge.
At least that one didn't flip off the side of the trailer.
At least Ukrainians actually put time and effort into their training, unlike the Russians. And so we can see that they're now going to start situating it a little bit further up on the trailer here in a second, but man, that's a bridge layer for sure. It's always wild to see these things carrying the bridge spans on top of them, because it just looks like it physically should be impossible for this thing to carry that bridge, yet it does. Of course, the bridge isn't as heavy as the tank. It's not made out of, like, 3 inches of steel in every direction, but it still just looks bizarre. And so now we can see they've got it all the way up on the trailer. We can now see the I guess you could say the guide on up here. He's telling the driver to keep on pushing it forward just a hair. But with that's the end of the clip. And if the Russians
I was expecting him to see him. His hands were above the bridge.
I think there's a gap in between the two sides, and I think the driver can see him through the gap right there. See, because he's looking through the gap in between the two spans. So I think that's how he's able to guide him. But we also don't see the tank move either in the last 2 seconds, so I don't really know if the guy could see him or not. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip, because believe it or not, throughout this amazing day, and it's been an incredible day, especially with what's happening in Bakhmut from what we've heard, it is, of course, the end of the news segment. It has been a little bit of a long one tonight, too, about an hour and 50 minutes long. But it's been an unbelievable night, and I thank every single one of y'all so much for showing up and watching this stream, because we are watching history unfold as we speak right now. A long time ago, in October of last year, I believe, I made a video on this channel that said that Ukraine would never lose Bakhmut. And for months on end after that, I've had pro-Ukrainian, or supposed pro-Ukrainians, Russian bots, and everyone else in between come onto that video and comment that it was just a matter of time. The Ukrainians would lose Bakhmut. It would happen. And right now, we are watching what is most likely going to be the end of the Battle of Bakhmut, but not because the Russians finally took the city, but because the Ukrainians strategically defeated the whole Russian army, for the most part, inside of that town. It is going to be a battle that goes down in history. Even if the war isn't remembered, this battle will be remembered. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the news and on into the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky to wrap out tonight's stream. And Zelensky also, I believe, has been completely taken away by the impressive actions, the brave actions of these soldiers of Ukraine, and has given them a personal address today, and we have that address right here. And so, here is the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky on the 11th of May.
Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні у мене почесне, дуже приємне завдання. Для цього звернення маю честь подякувати нашим воїнам і нашим підрозділам, які особливо відзначились у захисті держави від початку цього тижня. ОСУВ «Хортиця», 3-я і 5-та окремі штурмові бригади та 28-ма окрема механізована бригада імені Лицарів зимового походу. Я дякую всім вам, хлопці, кожному солдату дякую, сержанту, офіцеру за надзвичайно успішні дії по знищенню окупантів. Дуже добрий результат. ОСУВ «Таврія», воїни 44-ї окремої артилерійської бригади імені гетьмана Данила Апостола, 55-ї окремої артилерійської бригади Запорізька Січ, нашої славетної 59-ї окремої мотопіхотної бригади імені Якова Гандзюка та 79-ї окремої бригади ДШВ. Я дякую всім вам за міцність на позиціях, за силу в боях, за натхнення до перемоги, яке ви даєте всій Україні, всій своєю влучністю та відвагою. ОСУВ «Одеса», дякую бійцям 406-ї окремої артилерійської бригади імені генерала Хорунжого Олексія Алмазова за чудові результати у знищенні місць зосередження ворога. Відзначу сьогодні також артилерійські розрахунки 63-ї окремої механізованої бригади. Уміють хлопці мінусувати ворожу техніку на полі бою. Кожен ваш влучний удар, наші герої, це збереження життя українців. Дякую вам. Є за що відзначити цього тижня і підрозділи нашої Національної гвардії, зокрема воїнів 1-ї та 14-ї бригади оперативного призначення Нацгвардії, які разом з усіма силами оборони та безпеки України захищають нашу державу на Донеччині, на Луганщині. Дякую вам, нацгвардійці, і за вашу стійкість, і за ваше вміння силами своєї розвідки, артилерії, посувати колишню другу армію світу, нижче і нижче в переліку військових сил. Підписав сьогодні новий указ про відзначення наших воїнів державними нагородами. Це взірцево відважні військовослужбовці наших десантно-штурмових військ, 134 воїни, 25-та окрема повітряно-десантна Січеславська бригада, 46-та окрема аеромобільна бригада, 95-та окрема десантно-штурмова бригада, 132-й окремий розвідувальний батальйон, 148-й окремий артилерійський дивізіон, 199-й навчальний центр ДШВ. Кожне з усіх цих найменувань, кожне із усіх цих підрозділів – це честь, це гордість України, це героїзм наших людей, героїзм, який назавжди робить Україну вільною. Вистоявши зараз, звільняючи нашу землю зараз, даючи Україні перемоги зараз, кожен і кожна, хто б'ється заради України, дає свободу і усім новим поколінням нашого народу. Ніколи на нашій землі не пануватимуть чужі прапори, та ніколи наших людей не буде віддано на поневолення. Стійкість в боях зараз, потужність у наших активних діях, відвага і влучність наших воїнів щодня, щоночі – це незалежність України, яка буде завжди, яку ми посилюємо і будемо посилювати. Сьогодні, як завжди, був на зв'язку з командувачами та розвідкою, провів кілька нарад щодо наших міжнародних зусиль. Скоро зможу оголосити важливі, дуже важливі новини для нашої оборони, для наших відносин із партнерами. Зустрівся зі спеціальним радником президента Бразилії з міжнародних питань. Обговорили можливість проведення саміту у форматі Україна, Латинська Америка. Ще раз підкреслив своє запрошення для президента Бразилії відвідати нашу країну, побачити героїзм українців на власні очі, нашу реальну налаштованість на мир для всієї української землі, для всіх наших міст і громад, які зараз зазнають ударів російських терористів. Наша формула миру, яку Україна запропонувала світу ще минулоріч, зараз стала тільки актуальніше. Це єдиний комплексний, єдиний реалістичний план повернення спокою і не лише нашого народу, а усім народам планети, які прагнуть життя без агресії. Ще одне. Сьогодні схвалив комплексний стратегічний план реформування нашої системи правопорядку. Усіх правоохоронних органів та прокуратури. Це детальний документ, який розрахований на час до 27-го року. Якщо говорити просто, ми маємо забезпечити таку систему гарантування справедливості та правопорядку для нашої країни, яка відповідатиме і нашій меті швидкого вступу України в ЄС. Додаємо нашої готовності реалізувати цю мету і, що не менш важливо, гарантуємо ті основи нового суспільного договору, які очевидно окреслюються зараз при захисті нашої держави. Кожен елемент державної системи, органи правопорядку, передусім, мають працювати так, щоб люди реально відчували безпеку, захищеність, щоб люди реально відчували справедливість, щоб гарантувалося на рівні інституцій, на рівні повсякденної роботи тих, по кому люди судять про державу. Довіра в державі, довіра до держави формується із довіри до тих, хто діє Від імені держави, правоохоронці, системи прокуратури ключові в цьому. Звичайно, разом з усіма іншими, хто працює в державному апараті. Україна має стати і вже стала місцем сили Європи та усього вільного світу. Маємо забезпечити в Україні максимум безпеки, максимум свободи, максимум поваги до закону, до людини. І це відповідь на питання, яку Україну після війни ми будуємо. Державу, яка поважає своїх людей та яку поважають у світі. Державу, чий приклад життя шанують усі. Шлях до цього починається зараз, починається в діях, особисто в рішеннях кожного і кожної, хто воює, працює заради України та заради всіх українців. Слава усім нашим воїнам, які зараз в бою. Слава нашому прекрасному народу. Дякую всім світі, хто допомагає нам, українцям. Слава Україні!
And with that,
Heard Slava.
And Slava Ukraini. And that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on the 442nd day of the war in Ukraine. Whoever thinks, and when you really think about it, it's amazing that from day to day we pass by and we just cover the news of the past 24 hours each and every day. And who would have ever thought that the past 3 days, from day 440 up until day 442, would be 3 days that are probably going to be going down in history as key defining moments of the war in Ukraine. And I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for coming tonight and watching this news segment, because right now, believe it or not, y'all are watching history in the making, especially in the Battle of Bakhmut. Decades down the road, people, if they ever talk about this war, will probably be talking about these very moments of this battle, much like how people talk about the 8th Army being encircled at Stalingrad during the Battle of Stalingrad, or when U.S. forces landed onto the beaches of Normandy on June 6th, or when I guess you could say Pickett's Charge happened around the 4th of July in 1863. People are going to look back at these days, these last 3 days, as in a very similar vein to those, and how those days changed the war forever. And I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much for being with us tonight while we watch this history unfold. And also, of course, enjoying this news as well. If y'all did enjoy the news, and I hope y'all did, please make sure to subscribe, like, and comment. It brings a big smile to our face when people subscribe, because we love to know that folks do enjoy this channel and want to be apprised of this news. And I can certainly guarantee you that you will not be disappointed, especially if you're looking for continuous news coverage. We cover the news of the war in Ukraine 6 days a week on live streams at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night except for Monday. Monday is the only day we take off, but when we come back on Tuesday, you can count on us to cover the past 48 hours of the war, both Monday and Tuesday on that night. We also run short war summaries, just in case if these streams are a little bit too long for you. We do have 2 to 3 minute long videos that come out every single day now, 7 days a week, that will be giving summaries of what's happening in the war. And I thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. I thank everyone for always being with us and helping us to support Ukraine. And with that, we are now going to be moving on into the question segment that will be in for the rest of the night. But before we get into that question segment, we have to address those polls. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so we have several polls to address, and our very first one says the U.S. has accused South Africa of sneaking military aid to Russia in a covert naval operation. And what are your thoughts? 78% said if true, sanctions are definitely in order. 5% said unsure. 4% said, it really doesn't matter. And 14% said, I'm not shocked at all. And I'm personally really not shocked by that. And I also think at the same time that if it is true, then sanctions are certainly in order, and we shouldn't let them get away with that. Because obviously aiding Russia is like helping criminals, and they should get punished. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say if a country supports Russia, they should be subject to the heaviest sanctions possible. I think we should, if that is proven to be true, I believe we should start to sanction South Africa as hard as we sanction the Russians. The South Africans really have no impact on anyone economically, at least here in the West, and so sanctioning them would be a relative easy feat, at least for Western countries in Europe and the United States. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well, at least in my opinion. And once again, we always operate not just in the United States, but on an international scale of innocent until proven guilty. So, not saying just go and throw sanctions on them right now, but if it is proven to be true, beyond reasonable doubt that they are supplying aid to the Russians covertly, I do believe that they should be sanctioned as much as available. And so with that, I hope that does, once again, reiterate that idea fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Aren't they in bricks?
They are in bricks. They are actually the S in bricks.
Oh, well, see, in that case, because the standard of innocent until proven guilty wouldn't apply to them, in my opinion. I think we should go ahead and put sanctions on them anyway, because if we're accusing them of it, it's probably true, because we wouldn't make an accusation like that about a foreign country unless we had some evidence to back it up.
That's true. So, I'd actually have to agree with you there. I'm going to reverse that. We should start imposing sanctions now. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I had to go back and reverse my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a poll. Well, I typed something, get distracted there. The next poll says official numbers reveal that Ukraine has stockpiled $30 billion in military aid for the upcoming counteroffensive. And what are your thoughts? 48% said that sounds about right. 9% said I'm mixed on it. 18% said unsure, and 24% said that seems rather high. And I will say that that does seem rather high. So that would make me believe that this counteroffensive is going to be a whopper when it eventually goes down and gets to the peak. And I'm very interested to see exactly how it goes. Now, the $30 billion, I'm assuming that's a lot of ammunition mainly, and half of it's probably equipment. But I'm not really sure how the breakdown works. But $30 billion, that is a lot of money. That's getting close to Russia's military budget, if I'm not mistaken.
Around 60%.
But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that there's no doubt about it at all, that they probably stockpiled a large amount of the equipment they've been getting for a counteroffensive. That would be the smart thing to do. It's pretty wild to hear a number like 30 billion, because that is somewhere around 60% of Russia's annual military budget that they've stockpiled for counteroffensives, which is, of course, a good idea. I would say good on them for doing that, and hopefully that stockpiled munitions and supplies really helps them out in these counteroffensives that we're probably going to be seeing happening soon. I'm going to have to say this now clearly, though. I do not believe that the full offensive will be happening during the month of May. If this is the offensive, great. But I think there's a larger one still in place. This is a small, minor offensive, maybe a diversion. But the real offensive will be coming. I don't think it's going to be happening now because of the weather. I did see some people saying that the weather conditions are actually dry over there. And from a lot of the video evidence we've been getting, it's actually getting worse. And the ground is becoming even slushier right now, which is odd because it usually happens a little bit earlier in April, but now it's happening in mid-May. So I think the window will mostly be pushed back into a hotter month like June. Not that great because it gets warmer, and usually you don't want an army going its best in the hottest of weather or the coldest of weather. Usually you want to conduct operations in the spring or the fall, but the weather is pushing that window, in my opinion, more so into June or very late May. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next poll says a Russian Kh-55 missile was found in a Polish forest, and Poland has declined to comment. And what are your thoughts? And I will say up front that I actually researched this 2 days ago, and I couldn't find a legitimate source for it, so I wrote it off as simply rumor. But there's been official sources come out in the last day saying it was true, which is quite interesting. So it looks like 45% said Poland is going to overlook it, 9% said unsure, 6% said, was it really Russian, and 40% said Poland is weighing its options. And I have a feeling that Poland is going to overlook it. The fact they won't comment on it and they're kind of trying to brush it under the rug suggests that maybe they're thinking they can just let this one go. And I'm not sure exactly when the missile was actually fired into their forest, if that's the correct term to use. I'm not really sure how it got there. But I think it might have been months ago, but I'm not really sure. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be honest. I haven't really heard about the situation much because usually my scope is just the front line. So I haven't heard about the Kh-55 being found in Poland. But I would say they're probably going to overlook it because considering it didn't really kill anyone, and also they probably didn't find it for months, it's probably a non sequitur issue. Because if the Russians were actually trying to target Poland, they are incompetent as hell, so you can't really give them credit for much. But if they were trying to target Poland, something would have hit somewhere. So it was probably just a stray missile or something similar. So with that, I hope that does address that, at least based off of my limited knowledge of the situation. And also what's funny, Matthew, is that these missiles are so old that this one here, the picture of this one that we're seeing, was actually taken at a Ukrainian Air Force museum.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's how old they are, is that this is actually a museum piece.
Jeez, man.
Oh, man, the Russians, am I right? But anyway, so that we are on to the next one.
And also, I see some folks putting in the question marks about that last poll. If you want to find out details about it, they're on our Twitter page. It was reported by Reuters from several different Polish media outlets. So it was confirmed, and I'm with you. I'm skeptical as well. I'm kind of shocked that just came out now. So kind of odd. But up next to our next poll, it says the UK has donated long-range Storm Shadow missiles to Ukraine, and was this a wise decision? It looks like 89% said yes, it was a smart move, 3% said unsure, 6% said Ukraine agreed to restrictions, and 1% said no, that was a bad move. And I personally think it was a really smart move, but I will say I hope Ukraine abides by the restrictions that were placed on them by the UK, because I don't think it would be smart to start lobbing those into populated Russian areas in Russian mainland. I think that would be unwise. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it was a wise decision. Of course, they made an agreement with the British that they weren't going to use them on Russian territory, only Ukrainian sovereign territory. And as long as they stay within those parameters, I think it was an amazing decision. And so with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And that was our last poll. So we are moving right into our super chat questions. And up first, we have a whopping $500 donation from none other than Spencer, who sadly has already left for the night, sadly. But Spencer, if you're watching tomorrow, big thanks to you. That is extremely generous. And I think Enforcer called it out earlier as well. And he says, try number 2. Keep it calm, all, and carry on.
And try number 2, I mean, he tried before and it didn't work?
Yeah, he told me he sent in the first one. Apparently something happened. It either went through or it didn't. He had to contact Google, and then this was the second try.
Huh, that's weird. But I still thank you for the unbelievable support, Spencer. That is massive. That is, in case of y'all don't know, there's actually a limit as to how big a super chat can get. That is the largest one you can send in. And I got to thank you so much, Spencer, for the massive amount of support, because that does help this channel to keep on running. And not only that, we are completely blown away that you find this channel worth that much. And I thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And we are keeping it calm. Actually, we're keeping it uncalm. We're keeping it really excited, though, which is like the positive way of not being calm. And we will make sure to carry that thing on. And so I actually feel really bad that Spencer's already left. We did recognize it earlier, though. But I feel so bad that Spencer's left. So in honor of Spencer not being here, for us to thank him so much for that massive amount of support, let's get a live chat question real quick, so that way we can make sure to do something in honor of such a massive, unbelievable amount of support.
All right, and the live chat question goes to Ronald Boyer, who says, does anyone have any idea how many tanks Russia still has left in Ukraine? And what are your thoughts about the Russians might be trying to set a trap in Bakhmut?
I would have to say, addressing the last thing first, I don't think the Russians are setting a trap in Bakhmut. There's no way that giving up a whole flank is a trap. Because you see, giving up the center would be a trap. But they're not giving up the center, they're giving up the flanks, which means that the center is screwed. So that is no trap at all. In fact, it's a trap that the Russians have set for themselves, because the best thing that can happen is that they get encircled and stuck inside of Bakhmut, and then they get besieged in what they would consider an enemy town. So I wouldn't think it's a trap. To answer the first part of the question, that is a good question. How many tanks are left in Ukraine, at least that are Russian? We don't really have a specific number, because we know that the Russians have lost thousands of tanks. They've lost somewhere around 3,700 of them, according to the official Ukrainian number. And I believe in picture evidence from Oryx, they could confirm around 2,300 of them lost in picture evidence. So an excessively high amount of them have been lost. And from that, we're getting the idea that they may only have several hundred tanks left in Ukraine. And when I say several hundred, probably around the range of 500 to 700 tanks left. They don't have thousands anymore. We know that for certain. And they're so strapped for tanks that they weren't even bringing any tanks to the Victory Day parade. And I saw, I went somewhere today, Matthew, I'm not going to say where, but I was looking at a meme, and I was talking about that one tank at the Victory Day parade, and all of the Russian propagandists, all the pro-Russian people were down there going, well, it wouldn't make any sense for them to bring a modern tank to a World War II parade, like completely disregarding the last 70 years of Victory Day parades, where they always take their most modern and advanced stuff and use it in the parade. It's like, these people are just dumb. I mean, they come up with anything at this point to try and excuse this stuff. But
if they've had them in the parade before, why would they suddenly get rid of them when they need their morale to be high?
Yeah, why would they? I mean, like, hell, you would think they would even bring in more tanks to try and make it look like they're even stronger instead of getting rid of them. But they have maybe 500, 700 tanks. That would be my guesstimate, We don't actually know the exact number. We probably won't know the exact number until years after the war, when a lot of information starts to come out about it, and when the full picture starts to get pieced together. Because one thing I would like to remind everyone of is that while the modern world allows us to get a massive amount of information almost within the exact moment things are happening, there's still a lot of stuff that will have to be pieced together after the war is over that we don't really know about right now. We don't know the full picture of everything that's happening. And while we take great guesstimates, and we've been able to get a lot of guesstimates accurate on this channel by basing them off of historical precedent and what has usually been the norm in history, we still don't know for certain. And sometimes we get proven wrong on what would be a historical precedent, and it's not a precedent. It's just that this war is a little bit different in that regard. So, you know, we're saying 500 to 700 tanks, but we won't really know that exact number until the war is over and that information is compiled for sure. But with that, I hope that addresses both of those questions. And thank you so much, Spencer, once again, for the massive amount of support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because we are completely blown away that, one, much like Mark, who's also here tonight, he's still here. You blow away fundraisers whenever you're around. Not only that, you also support this channel massively, and we are greatly appreciative for both your support to Ukraine and also your support to help this channel to keep on running. And so with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And speaking of Mark, Colonel of the LSA, he puts in a $60 super chat next. And thank you very much, Mark, for the support. He says, I think Ukraine took advantage opportunistically of the fracture between Wagner, Gazprom, Ministry of Defense, etc., and attacked at the boundaries so the orcs didn't trust each other.
You know, Mark, that is a really astute observation. I'm not going to lie. That was a really good one right there, because that may be the case, because they attacked right around the highway perimeter where the 72nd lines end and the Wagners begin, because they actually did catch up the Wagner a little bit in that offensive in the first day and ended up taking out one of their assault groups. And also that's the same in the north, because up here, there is some kind of an infantry brigade that is in this area, and then the Wagner lines begin around Berkivka. So it actually seems that may be the case. They are attacking in between, I guess you could say, the seams of where these units end and the next one begins. And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Mark, because not even I had noticed that. And that was a really astute observation right there, because that's exactly what they did. And so with that, thank you so much for the massive amount of support. Thank you for sharing something that is actually changing the way I'm looking at this. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again, Mark, for being a old guard in the Lee Spring Army and helping this channel to keep on rolling.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $50 super chat from Marcus, who said, what type of targets do you think Storm Shadow will be used against? And bearing in mind each missile costs around 3 million USD and has 2 warheads, one for opening holes and second for damaging whatever is inside. Oh, and Slava Ukraini and Slava LSA.
And Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much for the support. To answer that question, we're most likely not going to be seeing the Storm Shadow used against anything on the front lines for certain, because it's too expensive of a missile to use for that. The Storm Shadows are probably going to be used very little, actually. They're going to be used in rare instances wherever that extra bit of firepower is needed. I would say that the Kerch Bridge will be an immediate target as soon as these missiles are equipped onto a Ukrainian aircraft, and when the time is right, the Kerch Bridge will probably be hit with one of these things. They do have 2 explosive charges, however, which does add a little bit of difficulty to that situation, because it will blow through the bridge, and then the main charge would blow up under the bridge. Actually, when you think about that, that would be perfect for blowing up a bridge, because it actually sends the force back upwards and uproots the supports, and then sends them back down off of their support beams and into the sea. So that actually may be perfect for attacking the Kerch Bridge, and I think that may be one of really the only place I can think of off the top of my head where those kinds of Storm Shadow missiles could be used, is probably for the Kerch Bridge. But other places could also be attacked. It's just that I can't really think of any outside of the Kerch Bridge right now. But I do thank you so much for the support, and it's great to know that the British, on top of your support, are supporting Ukraine and giving them weapons that some other countries are really reluctant in giving them. We've never seen anyone give them a weapon in that I guess you could say category, and it's certainly going to be game-changing as far as the Ukrainians conducting a precise strategic strike against the Russians in the war. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $50 super chat from Celix the Fat. Hey! And do you remember who Celix the Fat was before that name change?
Felix the Cat.
Yes. And thank you very much, Celix the Fat, for the support. And they said salad fund. Keep up the good work and take a question from the chat. And Slava Ukraini.
And Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much for the support to the salad fund. I got to be honest with you, I really need to start eating salads. I want to lose some weight here in the future. So thank you so much for supporting the salad fund. But I got to tell you, it's tough. It's tough with the kind of food options we have in Birmingham. Now, Matthew, I know that these folks probably don't watch our channel, although they did call you Enforcer Matt when you went and picked up the pizza. But
yeah, they did.
But what is the
Weirdly
name?
enough.
What is the name of that pizzeria that we went to? Because I want to give them a plug because they're the reason why the Salad Fund doesn't really get a lot of traction.
It's called Capella's Pizzeria, and it's the best pizza in Birmingham, Alabama. I've never had authentic pizza, but we have had a few people in here, including Red Lamani, who have invited us to try their pizza when we go to New York one day. But these people know how to make pizza right here.
And so if anyone's in Alabama, I would love to give these folks a massive plug because we went and tried their pizza, and it is, to be honest, a step above the rest. It is, from what I understand, a mom and pop shop, if I am correct, Matthew.
I think a family runs it, an entire family.
Yeah, well, it is an Italian thing. The entire family would run it if it is an
Yes.
Italian thing, but they make killer pizzas. This one right here is their, what is this, the Sorrento pizza, I believe?
I think so.
This is a Sorrento pizza, otherwise known as a pepperoni pizza. It is delicious. It is to die for. These are amazing pizzas. And one day we'll get around to trying out all of the pizzas in the Lee Spring Army. I feel like we'll turn into Mr. Lunchtime at that point, but we will get around to it eventually. But the pizzas they make here are unbelievably good. This is the inside of the restaurant. It is pretty basic, but they make up for that basic look in the restaurant for the quality of the food. It is unbelievable.
When I walked in and saw the Ferrari flag right there on the wall, I knew the pizza was about to be busting.
Man, when you walk in and you see the picnic benches, you know this stuff is about to be fire. Like
Yes.
that's what you know this is about to be the best food you've ever eaten. And you can also see the two ovens. They have wood-fired ovens to cook the pizzas. It's great stuff. And I want to make sure to give them a plug because mom and pop shops and local businesses are the front line of the U.S. economy. And while a lot of people never look at the mom and pop shop businesses, everyone always thinks about big ones like Papa John's in the pizza category or Pizza Hut or something similar. These little shops right here deserve plugs because without those plugs, they don't really get business. And so if anyone is in Alabama and does want a pizza, I would highly recommend that y'all come over here and try out Capella Pizza because we've tried it and I can tell you that they certainly deserve that 4.9 stars that they have on Google. It is amazing food all the way. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. That is not a salad. I'll tell you that. Felix the Fat, this is not a salad. But I was wanting to give them a plug while we were on the topic of food because they're an amazing pizza restaurant. And I think that people should give them a try if they haven't. And I feel like they're probably going to stick with them once they try it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running because folks like you make it possible for us to keep this channel running, make it possible for us to eat pizza or to eat salads. Although I don't really eat salads a lot, to be honest. But I do thank you so much once again for that support, Felix the Fat, and helping this channel to keep on running because you have been here for a long, long time. I remember back in the day when you were Felix the Cat, and that was a long, long time ago. I remember when Fushikone was Fushikone, and then Amerifatti, and I think his name has changed again. I don't know what it's changed to now, honestly.
Catfish Avenger.
Oh yeah, Catfish Avenger. Man, I honestly wish he would just change it back to Fushikone because whenever y'all come in here and we get to know y'all off of y'all's first name y'all ever use. So whenever we hear your new name, we always just revert back to the old one, like with Tangen Braigiri. I think that's like one of the best ones I can think of right now. I will always remember Tangen Braigiri as Tangen Braigiri, but I think right now his name on YouTube is just Tangen. But we always remember y'all by the first name y'all come in here. It's really nostalgic to us, and we always get a good laugh out of how far the channel's come, is that some people have gone through multiple account name changes in between when they joined the channel and now. But I thank you so much once again for the support, Felix the Fat. I'll always remember you as the old guard Felix the Cat. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And real quick, before we move on to our next super chat, before I forget, we did get a new piece of fan mail today from the P.O. Box. This one came from American Mom. who told me she was going to send this before it arrived at the P.O. box, so we were very relieved to see it was from her instead of the Russians. But she sent us a large framed Ukrainian stamp collection. She also sent a picture of Putin riding the tank, and the turret was a little bit not so straight, if you know what I'm saying, along with a very kind letter as well. And I just wanted to give you a shout out and let you know that we appreciate it very much. I added that to my stamp collection that I already had from some other viewers. So I think at this point, I pretty much have every stamp that Ukraine has ever made, and it is super cool. And I'm going to have to get them all framed in even a bigger frame to put on the wall. But big thanks, and we really do appreciate it.
And I got to thank you so much for the support as well, because those stamps were incredibly cool. And I got to be honest with y'all, not trying to vent any beef here on stream or anything, but Matthew has become the fan mail monger. Like, I see the stuff for like 5 minutes and it disappears into his room. Like, I just never see it again anymore. But he's got a great collection of stuff over there. I just wish someone would send me something that was specifically for me, because Matthew would be, he'll bring it into my room and he'll be like, well, actually he brings it to the set because that's like the room now. And he's like, check it out. And so I'm like, all right, what do we got? He's like, we got these stamps. I'm like, dang, these are cool. And he's like, yep. And then he just scoops them right back up off the set and walks off, and I never see him again. And I'm like, dang it, man.
I don't know why, but people love to address stuff to me. I've gotten bobcats, all kinds of stuff in the mail at this point.
I mean, you really have. Yeah, I mean, like, and some of it's really cool stuff. Like the U-Gear stuff, honestly, it's got to be some of the coolest stuff in the room right now. Also, the tank model from Jesus UCSB, that right there is by far the most visually impressive one out of all of them. But I also got to thank you so much, American Mom, for sending that frame picture of Putin, because I would have to say that tank needs some tank aggro. And so thank you so much once again for sending that. It was incredibly nice of you, and we are greatly appreciative of all of the gifts that everyone sends through the P.O. box. Just in case y'all are wondering, where in the world do you find the P.O. box? It's in the About section of our channel. So it's there with our business email, in a way. So you go over there and it shows you our P.O. box address. So if you ever want to send us fan mail, anything cool, you can always just send it there, because we check out the P.O. box every 1 or 2 days. Usually, though, we recommend that you send us a message letting us know that you are sending something to the P.O. box, because we weren't able to call out one of the fan mail packages because I actually ended up bringing it to the bomb squad because it was sent in without any notification, and we didn't really know what it was. And so I sent it to the bomb. Well, actually, I stood out in the parking lot with the bomb squad while they figured out what it was. So I never ended up calling out that viewer's name, because it would also follow the story of me having to bring the box to the bomb squad, because, you know, after seeing a couple of people get messed up by opening up packages, we are a lot more cautious now about messing with packages. So always make sure to send us a little bit of a heads up, like, hey, I'm sending something to the P.O. box, so that way we're expecting something from you, so that way we don't bring the box to the bomb squad. The bomb squad was actually a really nice group of folks, though, and if they are watching, because I did tell them that I ran a YouTube channel and I told them which one it was. If y'all are watching, y'all were very nice folks, and I thank y'all so much for what y'all did. They did it free of charge. It would cost the city a little bit according to what they said, but it cost everyone else nothing. So with that, hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much, American Mom, for the gift. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Truth be told, they love to break out the bomb squad equipment from time to time, but they pretend like they don't. But the truth is, they get bored, want to use the robot and the X-ray scanner and all that good stuff. But we're glad they did it, because sometimes the packages do look a little bit odd, and that one certainly fit the bill for looking odd. But anyways, up next we have a $20 super chat from Cindy Mitchell, and thank you, Cindy, very much for the support. Who says, please send it to the chat, Matt, and I will. And thank you very much. And the question from the chat goes to It Takes All Kinds, who says, what do you think would happen if Wagner surrendered in mass?
Now, real quick, before I answer that question, our lights just flared a little bit brighter than normal, and there is a storm on the way at this moment. I think it's passing overhead from us right now. It says it's mostly cloudy here, but it's not, because we looked at the weather radar beforehand. The storm is going to be passing over here in a few minutes. So just in case, if we get cut off, that is the power going off, and we probably won't be able to come on after that tonight because the power will be out. Just in case. I'm not saying it's happening, I'm just saying it may. So real quick, reread that live chat again, because I had to get that out just in case the power went out.
All right, and it was from It Takes All Kinds, and it says, what do you think would happen if Wagner surrendered in mass?
If Wagner surrendered in mass, that would be the end of Russian propaganda. There really would be no recovery for them, because while they've taken the Wagner kind of out of the propaganda circle, at least on state media in Russia, it is still looked at in great positive light by the Russian public. And so if the Wagner surrendered, there's really no way to come back from that, especially if Prighozin is captured alive, because that would be a disaster, a PR disaster for the Russian government, the Russian military, Russia as a whole. I think that would probably be another death knell in the war, and probably lead the rest of the Russian army to lose morale completely, because they would have heard the story of the Wagner and how they were getting screwed over by the Russian government, and then their demise at the end of the battle. And so all of those units would probably be thinking they would be the next one on the chopping block, since the Wagner's no longer around. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, at least in my opinion, as to what I think would happen. And once again, it's complete hypothetical, so take it with a grain of salt. But thank you once again for supporting this channel and sponsoring a live chat, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running and being a member of the Leaf Spring Army. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And also, before we move on, I don't know what's going on with the Twitter right now, but it is blowing up. Something has apparently hit the algorithms over there. It looks like we've gained 100 followers in the last hour, so very cool to see. And also, if you haven't peeped the Twitter, go and peep it. It's @itstheEnforcer, Enforcer, and we'd love to have you.
All of our Twitter keeps blowing up. That's so
it's
that
blowing up, and I love to see it.
You know what I mean, man? Like, every time I say that, I don't know if y'all know this one, but it's like the Arby's commercial, where he says, all of our food keeps blowing up, and then someone edited it to where the food actually blew up. Like, have you ever seen that one?
I haven't.
Let me show it real quick. I know it can't be copyrighted because it's incredibly short. All of our food keeps blowing up. There it is.
Man, that lightning's getting bad outside, by the way, too, from that storm.
Okay, yeah, okay, I wasn't crazy. And now the weather's telling me that earnings are upcoming. I don't think that's weather. I think that's finances. But anyways, here is the meme.
Chicken. We'd like to take a moment to announce that all our food keeps blowing up.
That's
what it does in your gut.
Yeah, all of our food keeps blowing up. So whenever I say that, I'm referencing that meme in particular. But anyways, the Twitter is blowing up. And if y'all could, please take a moment to check out our Twitter. Matthew is the one who runs the Twitter. I run largely all of the stuff that we put up on YouTube. So the streams, the videos, all that stuff, that's largely an Enforcer thing. The Enforcer Twitter, though, which is still a part of the Enforcer channel, is pretty much run entirely by Enforcer Matt. I may drop into the DMs every once in a while and say something there, but it's Matthew's show for the large part over here, and he does an amazing job at running this Twitter, putting out news consistently throughout the day, keeping everyone apprised of what's going on over there before we can even get live on air. So if you want a little bit of an additional bit of news before we even go live, on top of our short war summaries here on the YouTube channel and the live streams, make sure to follow this Twitter, because it is a indispensable source of news. It's a great source, and Matthew does a great job of finding the news before we even go on air. And so with that,
thank you. And also, before you click off of it, scroll down and try to see what is blown up that's causing this, because something has.
It's the Putin meme.
Oh, dang, almost 170,000 views on that.
Yeah, I mean, that one blew off.
Meanwhile, at the Kremlin.
And you know what's crazy is that we have seen some people retweet this thing and say that Putin is dying. This is a meme. This is an AI-generated picture.
Yeah.
He's not dying. This is a meme. And I want to make that clear as hell, because I know someone's going to come back and say that we were trying to put out fake news or something. That's a meme. And also,
I thought people would knew it was a meme. That's why I put the cheeky tagline on it. I would have said, AI generated. I figured people would see that, though.
You would think they would. And also, all of our memes keep blowing up. This thing is actually blowing up in front of us.
Wow,
that's
crazy. I mean, that might be one of my most popular tweets. Dang, it's getting 1,000 views.
Well, it just lost 400 and then it gained them back. I don't know what the hell was up with that. But yeah, I mean, like, this one's doing wild. And this literally just came, Matthew, after last night. You said, man, I need to put some more memes on the Twitter. You put up one meme and it blows up. Great job. Look, 400 more.
Dang. Scroll down a little bit. I love seeing my own tweets every while.
What a narcissist.
Is that ugly?
Let's see.
Got a little 6,000.
Oh, 4, South Africa. Dude, that guy said, and what's going to happen to us now? That's what he looks like. He's like, and you said they sanctioned what? But yeah, this is our Twitter. And we've been, well, Matthew has been putting out consistent tweets. Like I said, They're
Oh,
great.
click on that one. Click on this. It's been eerily quiet.
Oh, yeah.
Starsky put a fire meme
yeah.
on this one.
Yeah, look, it's
There
a
it
Starsky
is.
meme. Oh man, it's actually a
Oh,
really
man.
good meme. Actually, I appreciate that one good because it's like the proper like reaction format and everything. I like it.
I love it. I love it.
But man,
the memes are fire as usual, as we said below
Man,
that one.
The memes are fire. Where did you find this? It's absolute fire. But still, I gotta say, the Twitter's great. It's a party over there, and also it's the best way to reach out to us because you can just hop right into our DMs, and usually. Sometimes the DMs get flooded though, so it may take a while for Matthew to get around to every single one of them. And sometimes when it does get flooded, I also answer them. But you know, if you ever wanted to message us directly, especially if you're sending us fan mail, it is best to follow us on Twitter and then send us a DM letting us know that fan mail is on the way, because this is about the best way to reach out to us directly. So with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And y'all make sure to check this thing out. Because Matthew, I gotta say this once again, Matthew has put a lot of effort into this thing. And it's been going for months now. It's been going since March. Well, hang on. March of 2022? Oh, wait, hang on. I forgot why it's that old. It
was my old account.
Yeah, this one has been running... Let's see, I think it was after the year anniversary. So it would be like March. It's been going since March of this year, hasn't it?
It's been up for 2.5 months, and in that time, almost 7,000 followers, which is insane growth for a Twitter page.
Absolutely insane, by the way. Let me share that with you all. It is really insane. And I would love for y'all to go over there, because much like I put in a lot of time and effort to make sure the news we report on stream is good and our short war summaries are good, Matthew puts in a great amount of effort, the same amount of effort into making sure that this Twitter is putting out great, reliable news. We have a very high standard on this channel of what kind of news and information we put out, and Matthew certainly meets the mark and goes well above the mark on the Twitter, so make sure to go over there and follow it. And so with that, I hope that does address the Twitter fairly well.
Peter, the Twitter plug is here.
And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Sick Lid, who puts in a $20 super chat, and thank you very much, Sick Lid, for the support. And they said, President Zelensky says Ukraine needs more time to prepare the counteroffensive. And real quick, before the Enforcer answers that, I also saw a U.S. official today say that they believe that Ukraine is still in the staging phase of the counteroffensive. I would have to disagree with that. I think it's a purposeful deception to deceive Russia, but that's just my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say the same. I think that may be a feint of a statement because, well... Yeah, feint. That's the correct word. I think it is a feint of the statement because it doesn't really seem to be the case. And then he may be saying that because the weather conditions aren't that great, and it may actually happen later. But I think they're ready to go right now, and we have been hearing that for a good while. Everyone in the Ukrainian government has been saying they're ready to go right now. We're just waiting for the green light. And so I think that is the case. They are ready to go, and Zelensky is out there putting up the smoke and mirrors show, so that way the Russians go, oh, okay, we can wait maybe another 2-3 weeks, and then they start moving, and then the Russians go, they just go, oh, bleh, well, screwed, man. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support, though. I hope that does address that fairly well.
And the next one goes to Marion Deemer, who puts in a $20 super chat. And thank you very much, Marion, for the support. While almost coughed there. But Marion says, forwards, and don't look back. And Slava Ukraini.
And Slava Ukraini. And hopefully the Ukrainians go forwards and not backwards. Now, I think that we don't even have to hope for that. They are already doing that in Bakhmut. And hopefully, by the time we get to the news tomorrow, we will see that they have pretty much liberated the city of Bakhmut in its entirety. But that's very optimistic. We'll just have to wait and see. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Hopefully they do only go forwards. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on rolling.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Ronald Boyer, who says, Enforcer, y'all get some Krispy Kreme donuts and espresso, and you'll be good to go. Take a question from the chat.
Ooh, and thank you so much for the support. Thank you for the Krispy Kreme donuts. I haven't had donuts in a while, to be honest with y'all. And honestly, thank you for the love to the donut fund. Now, another local business that I would love to talk about here in the city of Birmingham, because I would like to give plugs to small businesses, because considering that we have a lot of viewers here in Alabama and a decent amount of them within driving distance of Birmingham, I would like to give a little shout out to those places that I sometimes drop by and get stuff from. One of these places is the Heavenly Donut Company, which is another mom and pop shop. It is just a small donut store on the side of the road near the Grandview Medical Hospital. They make amazing donuts. Matthew can tell you, I brought these home. They are the best donuts in the city.
Yes, and also be very cautious navigating around this page, by the way, if you know what I mean.
Okay. But
my name might, well, you know.
Oh, well, it's an amazing donut company. Make sure to go there if you're in Alabama and give them a drop by and say, the enforcer brought us here, and also get a couple of donuts. Get a dozen of them or so. This was actually the donut store I would go to when I was in college last year in the fall, and I would pick up the dozen or several dozen donuts to bring to my class with me. And that's also where the donut fund really caught on, is because I was doing that like it's a daily thing every week. But they had great donuts. Everyone loved their donuts. They're the best in the city. The best in the city, Jerry. The best, Jerry. But with it, thank you so much once again for support to the Donut Fund. Krispy Kreme isn't that bad. It's just that I always preferred... What?
They shut down near us.
Really?
Yeah, they've been gone for months.
I didn't even know. I never really go to Krispy Kreme, so I never really know what's going on with them. But I always like to find mom and pop shops that do the same thing, because it keeps the local economy well and truly bolstered, instead of just a large company sucking money out of the area, and then if the profits go down, they shut down and move on to a more profitable city. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and it will keep us going on. Whether it be a Krispy Kreme donut or a Heavenly donut, it will keep us going. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on running.
All right, and our next one is from Jim Toy, who puts in a $20 super chat. And thank you, Jim, very much for the support. He says, well done, lads. Now go have a beer.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I thank you for saying it's a job well done. Now, I don't drink, actually. I could have a root beer.
You drink that Bud Light, boy?
Man, well, I can no longer comment on that because Bud Light has now become but I thank you so much for the support. But we don't drink beer. We don't drink alcohol of any kind, actually. We keep PG. Even off camera, we keep PG. Except for the jokes. The jokes can sometimes get a little out there. But still, I thank you so much for support. We will have a root beer on you. And I thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And you know what? I'll actually say this. I'll drink a beer when Ukraine wins the war. I'll drink one. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $17 super chat from Banana Boat 30+. And thank you very much for the support, Banana Boat. And they said the mere threat of a mass-scale offensive is enough to make Russians move off defensive positions. And if this repeats, it could save Ukrainian lives when the offensive starts, and the psychological effect may be enough to win positions.
And I would have to agree with you, actually. It seems as though the Russians are freaking out. They think it's the real offensive and it's causing units to panic so badly they're running away. So I would say that may actually be saving lives. I'll tell you, though, where that didn't work in Somalia. Because you see, back in the day, the British were going to land an invasion force in Somalia because this area was actually controlled by Italy at that point in the Second World War. And the Italian doctrine at the time was that if they ever figured out where the enemy forces were going, to just retreat out of the area and go somewhere else. So they at least they were deceived to think that the British were going to be landing near Basaso right there. And so they moved down to Berbera, but that's where they were actually going to land. So when the British showed up at Berbera, the Italians freaked out because they weren't actually supposed to engage the British. They were supposed to go where the British weren't going to land, and then they ended up going right where they were heading. So they freaked out there, but that's a rare instance. You know, that's like one of those freak historical examples of something going bad wrong like that. But the Russians are just running. If they even get an indication that the Ukrainians are pushing somewhere, they just leave. And hopefully that does save a lot of Ukrainian lives and makes these offensives far more successful than they would have been if the Russians tried to hold their ground. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the mass amount of support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. I think you may be right, Lufex. I think it was Eritrea. Let me make sure. No, I think it was Somaliland. I think it was actually Somaliland instead of Eritrea. I don't really know. I may be wrong on that one because I just remember that story as a passing thing. It's not anything I've really looked at. So correct me if I am wrong because I may be wrong. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, the next super chat involves an image that I need to send over to you real quick. Let me copy and paste that. There we go.
Meme?
It is a meme. And the next super chat goes to Psyops, who puts in a $10 super chat. And he said, can you show the new Bob Jack image? And also, special thanks to the LSA Pterosaur, I believe, a.k.a. my dino buddy.
And I thank you so much for the support, and also a huge shout out to the Torosaur, who's out there. He's a great guy and an old guard in this channel. He's been around forever. And sadly, Matthew has seen it, but he can't see it right now on screen. But Matthew, say the line!
3 more days, Papa.
Do I look like a real boy, Papa?
And look at it. He just sitting in there. He's seething in his burned out Bobcat. Oh. Oh, man. This is what the Russians were like on Victory Day, man. They went mental that night. They DDoSed the hell out of us, and they still didn't win. But I love it. And I thank you so much for the support, Psyops. And why in the world am I screwing up so badly talking right now? And sharing with us this meme. It had effort put into it. I would say that for certain. It had effort put into it, and I appreciate it greatly. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Psyops, and also sharing a really cool meme. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, Psyops, for being an old guard of this channel and helping this thing to keep on rolling as well. And also being our only chat moderator that isn't me or Matthew. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and speaking of Psyops, we have yet another one from him. It's another $10 super chat. And he says, user Fayuma just made a video for you, Enforcer. I'll send the link in the DMs, and warning, it's Andrew singing. And apparently, he has gotten permission from Fayuma for us to play this song, and it's in your Discord DMs.
Oh, God. 1 second. Let me... Oh, no. You know? Oh, no. No. I have a feeling this is going to be bad. Really bad. And I'm going to cringe.
I'm really anxious to hear this.
Well, I am not. So let's go pull it up. It's a minute and 39 seconds. Hey, you know what? I just realized.
Powered by Psyops.
We can have this thing copyright strikes. I'm just kidding, but here's the song. Hopefully it's not bad.
Hopefully they don't have copyrighted beat in the background. All right, and the next one goes to Psyops yet again. He puts in a $10 super chat and says, Fuyuma Master... Excuse me. Whoa. But anyway, Psyops says, Fuyuma Masterpiece Song. Psyops and Enforcer Matt. Now, Psyops, you know I don't sing now. You know I don't. So, look, send this to the Enforcer, and he might sing along.
Oh, no. Man, Matthew's always throwing me under the bus because he knows I'll do it. Let's see. It's true. That's it. Oh, well, there's nothing really wrong with it, so we gotta read it. Oh, man, I know I'm about to get flamed for singing. Someone's about to go, Mandy, to the,
oh, no.
The Mikado. I've got to this. And they're going to say, I unsubscribe because he sung so terribly. But anyways, the weather outside is frightful. Airport's dying so delightful.
Oh, dear.
Oh, my God. This is...
Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
That's absolutely terrible. You'll be getting on American Idol that night. That's rough. Oh, my God. I'm gonna have to cut off the last 10 seconds of that. That is rough. I don't sing
My
well.
goodness. Fuyuma, did you put auto-tune on that and try to, like, change the pitch of it or something? Something sounded modified with it.
That was bad. That was real bad. But I thank you for the support, nonetheless, Psyops, and letting us hear that song by me, but edited by Fuyuma. It was something. And I think you've solidified it in my mind, Fuyuma. I don't care if someone pays us $500 in the super chat. I'm not singing again. That was terrible to listen back to. And I feel sorry for all the poor souls that had to go and watch that stream where that was in the question segment. That was rough. Too rough. Honestly, so rough, I'm going to go and forget that I ever even sang at all on these streams. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And see, that's why I've never sung. I take the party pooper mentality because I'm fine with it because I'm not having a remix like that made on me. No, sir.
Man.
But up next, we have a $10 super chat from Rick B. And he says, that Russian drone probably has a Polaroid camera on it. The problem is it drops its pics onto Ukrainian positions. Obliat.
Thank you for the support. And yeah, it's dropping the Polaroid straight down right onto the Ukrainians. They're sitting there waving them around the air, going, "No, eventually they'll turn into a real picture, blade." But still, thank you so much once again for the support. And that is actually a pretty funny idea right there. Is that they're actually using old Polaroid cameras instead of like modern digital ones. And some of that. Thank you so much once again. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And honestly, Matthew, I'm thinking about ending this thing early because I feel so disgraced by that video. That was bad, man. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Now, he said he didn't use auto-tune, so that was just raw voice on that video.
Man, that'd be terrible for real. It's a good thing I never tried to enter the singing industry because that would have never worked out. And with that, we are on to the next one.
You know they're going to play that at a campaign rally, right?
Oh man, I'm looking forward to it, man. You know what?
Yep. Like Lewis said it. That song will be brought up in the future presidential debate.
You know what?
They'll be putting that in a commercial.
You know what though? Like I will sit here and not like it right now, but I'll tell you all this: if anyone ever tries to bash us with something, you know, like Bert and Ernie or anything in particular like that, we will embrace that because you know one thing I do. And do know is that I do like or dislike some things, but if anyone ever tries to beat us over the head with anything, we just embrace that and use it as our own. And usually that just infuriates the people who try and do it against us, like a Marifatti or Bert and Ernie, or let me think about the other stuff. What else was there? Lee Spring Army. I mean, like, hell, that was a thing that was like got violent, and then we just took it as our own. That's what I do. So if it came up during a presidential debate, I would be hitting the sickest gritty on that stage, the absolute stanky leg to that thing, and I would just act like it's great. I would embrace it. In fact, it would become my campaign song. But with that, thank you so much once again for reminding me of the horrors I'll have to be dealing with in about 20 years. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one. The next one goes to Psyops yet again. He puts in another $10 super chat, and thank you so much, Psyops, for the continued support. He says, I found out what the orcs are doing with these stolen toilets, and the video is in your links, Matt. And I was looking here to see if I can find that link. Let me go back to Psyops' DM. Let's see here. The toilets. I see the Fiuma song. I see a Twitter post. Let's see. Oh, okay, that's what he wants me to show, the Twitter post. So let me copy that link, send it over to the Enforcer in his DMs. And Enforcer, it's not in your DMs.
And let's see here. What do we got? Let me look at it on my phone first. All right. Now it's time for us to go on and get it. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wait, hang on. I'll actually go to Twitter, though. Oh, music. Ah! Turn off. Turn it off. All right. So, I don't know if the music is copyrighted or not, so out of safety, I'm going to mute it. But, oh my gosh. It's a whole toilet. It is literally
sitting on that.
Dude, I got to tell you, man. I honestly think that would help me to get on out of the bathroom quicker, because I would be scared so much that the crap would be coming out. So I'd be like, oh my god.
Imagine this. The Russian, you capture the Russian. They're not giving you the information that you need. Strap them on the toilet. Fly it around.
Dude, that is cruel and unusual punishment, man.
It might be.
Dude, I can imagine this. Imagine you're in a world where a sad man called Vladimir Putin is living. He's a dried up sad sap, and what he doesn't know is that he's about to sit down on the toilet to hell, and he's about to enter the Twilight Zone. He starts riding this thing around. Oh man, that would be a funny Twilight Zone episode, honestly. Putin stuck to a flying toilet. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. Not about me. We're getting a lot of memes tonight, really. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Slim Booter. And thank you very much for the support. And they said, with Russia losing so much equipment, how many years do you think this will put them behind militarily compared to the rest of the first world countries?
So technologically, it won't put them behind that much militarily, actually, because they already have been behind militarily. The only way they've been able to keep up is by importing foreign equipment. Well, at least foreign parts to put into their older vehicles. So technologically, they've never really been there. Military-wise, strength, power projection-wise, that's really the question. How far will it set them back? It'll set them back a good deal, because they were a regional power before this conflict. They can't be a regional power after this conflict, because the only thing that made them a regional power was their military and their power projection because of that. Now they don't have that, and they never had an economy to begin with after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So we're probably going to see that the Russians go from being a regional power to, I would say, an insignificant power at best, if you wanted to put it into a term. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And to also answer the question about how far they are behind technologically right now, I would say they're behind the United States, which is the exemplar of modern military technology, by at least 25 years. That would be my guesstimate. At their best. At their norm, what their actual army is made up of, they're at least 40 years behind in almost every single category. In the aircraft, though, they're probably around 20, 30 years behind. But in everything else, about 40. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Right, and our next one goes to Skip Tracer 007, who puts in a $20 support, and thank you, Skip, very much for that. And he said, why did Italy announce that all of its citizens should leave Ukraine immediately yesterday? And thank you both for the laughs. And it's because they said the pizza was ready.
And it's because Capella's Pizzeria opened, and it was the best thing ever. But you know what that means? What does it mean? That's how I get that. But the answer.
Does anybody know the reference?
Someone will. Someone will know that reference. But let's see. The reason why we think it's because the counteroffensive is coming soon, and they've been notified, and so they're trying to tell their people to get out, just in case the Russians go mental. I think that's the reason why. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support, Skip Tracer 007, and thank you so much for enjoying all of the laughs that we've been able to share together, because it's been a hell of a trip running this channel, and I'm glad to know so many people have been with us the whole way watching this dreadful war, and the brave men and women who are out there in Ukraine fighting this war, and have been able to have some high spirits and laugh it out along with the soldiers in the field. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one. Well, someone called TSO33 says, your estimate of Russian forces are way off. I know. They honestly, they're already in the Napoleonic era, if we were being realistic, but we're trying to be optimistic here and say that they're only at the World War II era at this point. And so with that, we are on to the next
And he started off that whole tangent by saying nuke power trumps regional power, meaning Russia.
Nah. No.
And why are they getting their asses kicked then?
You know, I have to say this. Nuclear weapons, for the longest time, have propelled... no, it's not even an exemplar for that. Because what are we going to say? Are we going to say that North Korea is a major world power because they have nuclear weapons? No, they're not.
Exactly.
They are an insignificant world power. They only have nuclear weapons. That doesn't really change their standing in the world, however. It only makes it a lot more difficult to deal with them because they have nuclear weapons. But they are an insignificant power. And I would say Russia is in a similar vein as North Korea. It doesn't matter if a country has nukes or not. It really matters about how strong of an economy they have. That's really what it boils down to at the end of the day. Because even if you don't have a big military, the United States taught us at the turn of the 20th century that you don't even have to have a big military. You just have to have a massive economy, and you can make a massive military just form out of thin air. You know, so it doesn't really matter about the size of the military. It matters how strong your economy is. And the Russians have a weak economy. On top of that, they had a strong military, and it's been wiped out. Well, at least a strong military on paper that's now been wiped out completely. And so they're an insignificant power through and through. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to John Bartley, who puts in a $10 super chat. And thank you, John, for the support. He says, I'm so glad that I found your channel, but I'm no Mark. But someone in the chat had a great joke, and it said, a friend asked me if I wanted to hear a joke about the May 9th parade. I said, no tanks. Appreciate you both.
Oh, wait, I got it. And I thank you so much for the support. That's actually a really good one. And also, and did he say he was no Mark, like a Mark Slava Ukraini?
A colonel of the LSA.
The colonel of the LSA. Did he say he wasn't a Mark like that?
Yes.
Well, I got to tell you this. Regardless whether folks, and some people think that we look, and this is something that I've actually heard people say before, and it always surprises me when people say this. Some people think that because they cannot support us like some viewers can, like Spencer, who threw in a $500 super chat tonight, or Mark, who threw in a $110 super chat, that we don't really care about their support. We care about everyone's support, whether it be $500 or $1. We honestly look at that about the same way. And while we always thank people who send in massive amounts of support, it means a lot to us that people support us at all, whether it be $1, $5, $10, $20, yeah, whatever it may be. We're very appreciative to anyone who supports us. And so to us, you're just like Mark. You're helping this channel to keep on running and supporting us behind the scenes, and it means a lot to us that folks enjoy this channel enough that they find it worth supporting at all, whether it be $1 or $500. And so thank you so much once again for support. Thank you for sharing that pretty good joke. That was a good dad joke right there. And we always, at least I'm a great appreciator of dad jokes, and I got to thank you so much for sending one in, because that's going down in my repertoire. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much for the support. And with that, on to the next one.
Thank you. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from CK Bold, who says, take a live chat question. And of course, CK, as we always do, we will take a live chat question. We have never refused that request to date, and we never will. But thank you very much for the support.
We shall not deny a guest even the most ridiculous request.
And where does that reference come from in the live chat?
What?
I was asking the people in the live chat to say where that reference comes from.
Yes. I thought you were asking me. I was about to give the answer. But tell us, do you know where that comes from? Because, Matthew, do you know where that comes from?
Yes.
Okay, good. We want to know if y'all know where it comes from, because I would be really blown away if y'all did. But it's very obscure. But with that, we are on to the live chat after I interrupted you. Sorry about that.
Well, no problem. But the live chat question goes to B, who says, what's going to happen to the commander of the Russian army after Putin finds out that the commander failed? Do you think he'll accidentally be pushed out of the window?
Actually, the generals get pretty lax punishment. They just get removed from their position and replaced. We haven't seen any of them die so far, unless if it's by enemy action. Well, by Ukrainian action. But from a Russian perspective, it's enemy action, so that's why I'm saying that. But we have never seen any of them get pushed out of the window. They just get replaced. So I don't think the sitting general right now will get thrown out of a window. He'll probably just be replaced along with everyone else. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again, CK Bowl, for the support and allowing us to answer that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again.
All right, and the next one goes to Thomas, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, Slava Ukraini.
And Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. Thank you for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a 5 and says, I have been too excited by the news to spend time on solving the Morse code, which is why I've been slacking off. I'm as hyped as you guys for Ukraine.
And I thank you so much for the support. And that's actually interesting to hear that we've lost a Morse code reader because they've been hype. And I thank you so much for the support. And also sharing that with us, and I completely understand. We are so hyped up every single night. I've been working on trying to make our intro even more hyped up at the beginning than it has been. Matthew can tell you it's been met with minimal success, honestly. But I've been trying to figure out how to add something to the intro to make it even more hyped up. Because what we're watching right now is amazing stuff. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for explaining why we haven't seen you as a Morse code reader lately. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
And the next one goes to the B Knight 3, who puts in a $5 super chat, and thank you very much for the support. And they said there are 2 civil airborne schools in the U.S., Liberty Jump School, Texas, and Round Canopy Parachute Team, Florida. Want to try to jump? It might be fun for you.
I would probably try if I was... I don't know when I would actually try, to be honest with you. I'm a little scared of it, and one of my biggest fears is that the chute fails and you just fall to your death. That is something to me.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens. And, you know, it's something I would be scared of doing. Maybe one day I will, though. But I'm going to be honest with you. I would do that if I was diagnosed with some kind of a terminal illness where I knew I would die, and I would do it then, because I would feel like there wouldn't be that much to lose. You know, I'd only be ending my life a little bit sooner than it would end anyways. But I don't know. Like right now, I couldn't really see myself doing that. But still, maybe one day I'll give it a shot. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And the only time I'd ever jump out of an airplane for any reason would be in the military if I was training for combat. That would be literally it, because I can't justify jumping out of a plane just for fun because it's too dangerous. But up next, we have a $5 super chat from Cliff H, who says, question. Oh, here goes the pole joke. Here it goes. What is Enforcer Matt's preferred medieval weapon? A pole axe.
You know, there actually were. You know, there actually were pole axes. You know, they were actually not that bad of a weapon.
A pole axe?
Yeah, this is a pole axe. Well, that's a video game pole axe. Let me see if I can find you a real one. This is.
I thought that meant something else.
No, this is a pole axe right here.
What's let me send you this in the Discord, and you tell me what this means. So hopefully it's not something bad.
Okay. Let's see here. We're waiting for review. Let me type that in.
Because before I say that, I have suspicions this might be a slur or something. I just want to make sure.
So it's a fish.
That can't be. I've heard somebody call somebody that.
1 second.
It refers to something about Polish people, something.
Let's see.
I'm not sure if it's derogatory or if it's just something that's just a term that's used, kind of like Cossack.
So actually you were correct. That is actually a derogatory slur in North America against Polish people. But it is also a fish. So
it's got double meaning.
Yeah, it's got double meaning. You sit there, dude, honestly, man, imagine, oh man, I can't even go into that one because that one's just too touchy of a subject to get into right there. But imagine, you know what? We're on to the next one.
All right, so the next one. Somebody said it. But anyways, up next we have a $5 super chat from KV. And thank you very much for the support. And KV says, please read out polls, top to bottom, in percentages, and good stuff overall. And KV, I do try to do that from time to time, but during the stream, especially now that our viewership is climbing up toward 8,000 and higher during our streaming time during the news, it's getting extremely difficult to try to juggle all that at once and try to pay attention to specific details like that. That's why I'm kind of having to reel back on the commentary I'm giving on the polls because I am simply overwhelmed. And I'm trying to avoid putting the chat timeout back on the chat because I don't like doing that. But I will try to do that. But Enforcer, what say you?
And also, I thank you for the support, and also for that suggestion to Matthew. Whether he follows that or not, that's up to him because that's his wheelhouse. But I saw Plexus Gaming say this. I'm Polish, and I'm not offended by that word. Now, I would say that's good on you, Plexus Gaming. But one thing we're always concerned about is not how a viewer perceives it, but how YouTube perceives a word. Because it doesn't really matter if the viewers are okay with it. Because if someone comes in here and they go, oh, and then they go and report it to YouTube, someone from YouTube could come down, and while no one had a problem with it except for the person that reported it, we could get in a lot of trouble for something like that. So we always have to be very careful about that kind of stuff, whether or not people are fine with it or not.
There's a guy on YouTube that uses that word all the time. He's a real estate guy on YouTube. That's why I was wondering if it was derogatory or not, because the guy's kind of brash, and maybe he just gets away with saying it somehow.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. That's kind of weird to me, but we always have to make sure that we're extra careful because there are people out there who would love to see us get some kind of, in some kind of trouble one way or another. And so we always want to make sure to give them as least opportunity as possible to get us in trouble, any way, shape, or form. So
I hate that so many words have become slurs because I feel paranoid about saying literally anything now because I'm worried it might be derogatory somewhere in the world.
Well, well, you know, I don't think we have to worry about that much. We just have to worry about how you pronounce holidays. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And see, even that's like a mispronunciation could lead to some unfortunate misunderstanding.
Okay, yeah,
It's really kind of odd.
But that one would be easy to appeal because that one was just an honest slip up because for some reason you didn't know how to pronounce it. So that one.
It really wasn't. I knew how to pronounce it. It's just it was so busy in the live chat. I was trying to read like 5 things at once, so my mind didn't register that was a holiday. So when I was reading it through, I just looked at the literal spelling of it, so my mind didn't register it. But it's unfortunate how sensitive things are these days.
Well, you know what they say, Matthew. It is what it is. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, it's a $5 super chat from Bake. And thank you for the support. And does the LSA work with NAFO?
The LSA does have NAFO members. I don't think we've ever worked specifically with NAFO in any kind of particular project. Now, we have worked with other YouTubers. We have worked with Denis Davidov, Ukraine Matters, Operator Starsky, Funker 530. We've worked with other YouTubers in doing things like collaborative live streams and stuff like that, but I don't think we've ever done a project with NAFO specifically. We do know of NAFO, and we have had dealings with NAFO. Like Jesus UCSB is a NAFO member, along with Super Bunker 9000. But I don't think we like if you mean work like that, yes. But if you mean like a project with NAFO, we haven't. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support, and I hope that does address that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, I have to say it because I really hate having to say this because I don't like having to police speech. But I hear some reports of some folks getting mouthy with others in the live chat. And if y'all could, please keep it civil because we would like to not have people angry down there in the live chat. But with that being said, we're moving on to our next super chat, which goes to Chip Kerwan, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, not noise from partners. Is there a combat downside to sticking with low-risk, persistent degradation of Russian assets and holding off on dramatic offensive?
Well, I thank you so much for the support, and I got to say that was a lot of flash words right there. And to answer that question, I would have to be honest with you. It's really hard for me to answer that question because I'm trying to figure out how to answer it in regards to the flash words. So can you reread that one again?
Let's see. Excuse me. Trying to see here. He says, is there combat downside?
So is there a downside? So we already have that part. Is there a downside to?
So he wants to know if there is a downside to slowly wearing down the Russians, or should they go ahead and do a dramatic offensive?
So should they wear them down, or should it be an offensive?
I think.
Okay, so to answer that question, at least if that's how it's supposed to be, I would say that the best thing to do is that they've already worn the Russian forces down for months on end. Right now is a prime time in Bakhmut to conduct an offensive, or at least a counter to their offensive actions in Bakhmut, because that's going to lead to some pretty good results, because there's really no way for the Russians to stop that at this point. It's kind of like the Confederate Army at Gettysburg. After Pickett's charge, they were practically exhausted at that point, and there was really nothing that would stop the Union forces from coming down from the ridge and sweeping them off the field, which is what they did right after that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Joseph M. Sika, who puts in a $5 super chat. And thank you, Joseph, for the support. And it's good to see you once again. Let's see. He says, when is Hitler, and I mean Putin, gonna be offed? Very soon, LSA, very soon. Kick. Also, try Santarpio's in East Boston, my great-grandfather's restaurant, LSA.
And what's it called again?
Santarpio's.
Santarpio's. I think we pulled it up before.
I think so.
See, Boston. Here we go. Yeah, we have. We pulled this place up before. Vitalio. You know what that means? What does it mean? I can't do the whole thing. But we have been here before, and we will have to go up here and try it out. It looks like good pizza too. And there it is, Santapio's Pizza. Not that bad. Not bad. Now you. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, Joseph M. Sika. You've been around forever. You are our small guy. I remember you were always the one saying, "Where are the smalls?" And they finally got the smalls a while ago. And so I hope we addressed that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I did address everything in that one, did I, Matthew?
I believe so. Do you know when Putin's going to be offed?
Oh, no, sadly not. No, I don't have the timetable on that one. But I will be asking the Russian government for the schedule, so that way we can figure out what day he will be offed. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Andrew Kajda, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, on a YouTube channel called Infrastructure, they confirmed it was a downed drone. They covered up the missile NATO Charter 5.
Article 5?
I think that might be what he was referring to.
And I thank you for the support. And I thank you for sharing that with us because I don't really know a lot about that missile situation. I will be looking into it after the stream as well. But thank you so much for adding a little bit of additional info as well. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right. And the next one goes to Dupper Bob, who puts in a $2 super chat and says, oh yeah, mass panic.
Oi. I don't. What's that last part again?
Oh yeah, mass panic.
Oi. I don't know what that last part is still, but still, thank you once again.
Mass panic.
Oh, I thought you said mass pack. I was like, what is a mass pack? I was like, what is that? But still, thank you so much for the support. Mass panic is going on in Russia. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Mank Two-Wheeler, who puts in a $2 super chat and says, hope we get some miserable bots crying Slava Ukraine high school.
I hope we do too. I hope we get them crying, seething. I hope we get them looking just like this soy jack, right? Wojak. I don't know why I keep on calling him a soy jack. It's a Wojak. But I hope we get him looking just like this Wojak right here. Wojak. Whoa. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, Mank. And that's what we call our Sheba. We call her Baby Mankey every once in a while, or Baby Minky. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping the channel to keep on running.
And Plexus Gaming said, wait, what missile? Well, there's a missile found in the forest of Poland, and it was Russian, KH-55, I believe, cruise missile. They won't comment really on how they found it, when it arrived there, or the details on it. They're trying to brush it under the rug is my impression, but we really don't know. But actually, that's very big news, but since they're not commenting on it, it really doesn't go anywhere. That's kind of a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $2 donation from Raphael Harris, who says, credit to Zelensky sticking to his guns on Bakhmut.
And I would have to agree. Credit to him for sticking to his guns on Bakhmut. A lot of people doubted the situation in Bakhmut. I even doubted the situation in Bakhmut because it was getting rough. And it looks like they did have a long-term plan, and it's finally coming into full swing. And it's crazy to think. It's crazy to think. We've been sitting here for this long, an incredibly long time. And I can't even do that voice tonight because my voice is so shot from screaming the past 2 nights. But it's been unbelievable to see because I didn't think they had a plan like this. I didn't really think they'd try and push the Russians off the field. I thought they would do some defense in depth, whittle them down, and then they'd move on to an offensive elsewhere. But it looks like they're going to move on to an offensive elsewhere and also win in Bakhmut as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. It looks like the as we call them, the rabble-rouser has finally been dispensed with. That, I guess you could say they've been found on road dead. And also, let's see. Someone said, the dumbest thing I ever say is bussin'.
Man,
well,
that
hey,
statement
listen,
wasn't bussin'.
Listen, I'm telling you this. I might say bussin', but at least I'm not bussin' tables, but and so they're on to the next one. And also, by the way, I was a waiter. I have bus tables before. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to White Lightning 777, who puts in a $2 super chat and says only a few M113s have turrets. All Bradleys do.
And I thank you so much for the support, sharing that with us. That is true. But it also makes it somewhat more difficult sometimes with like the YPR 765 when they do have turrets because they can, at a long distance away, they can kind of be mistaken for a Bradley. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Eric Kress. And thank you, Eric, for the support. He says, do you think Putin will start feeling cornered? and he's probably already feeling that way.
Oh, he's been feeling that way the whole war. I think the question is how badly cornered does he feel? Because he's been feeling cornered the whole time. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Dark Warrior 137 once again, who puts in a $2 super chat and so for the Andrew Music Album Fund.
Oh, you don't want to put any money into that fund. That's a bad investment. But still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And one day, maybe you'll get your dream to come true. And so with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling.
And also, by the way, there's now a Enforcer Christmas ringtone version of the song you heard a while ago. It's not on Spotify, but it's on YouTube. But anyways, moving on, we have a $2 super chat from Randy Tosto, who says, for your singing lessons.
And thank you so much for the support. Does the singing lessons, because I certainly need them. And so that we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have one from, and that's actually a reminder. Never mind, I'm not going to read that off. But we have another super chat. This time is from Psyops, who puts in a $10 super chat. And he says, there may now be a ringtone for all LSA members. Matt, it's in your DMs. And guess what? Psyops wants it played.
Oh, man. I've got to be honest. It's funny, but it's rough. Like, it's rough. It makes me cringe. I know it probably makes y'all cringe. But I'll leave it up to you, Matthew, whether you send that over to me or not for us to play.
It's sent.
Dang it. Dang it. I thought you'd be the one to say no. Oh, man. Now I got to go play it.
I only object to me singing. I don't object to others singing.
Dang it. Oh, God. Weather outside is frightful. Force dying so delightful. As long as they win KO. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
The bass is too loud.
The bass is too loud. But still, thank you once again for the support, Sam. We did play it. And thank you once again for helping the channel to keep on running and also making me know that this will come up in 20 years when I run for president. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And up next, we have a super chat from Wubba, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, my last $10, and can I borrow $5?
Thank you for the support, Wubba. And I would love to do that, but I don't know how we would do that. I don't think there's a reverse super chat option. But still, thank you so much for the support, Wubba. Oh, once again, also in all seriousness, by the way, we don't encourage folks who may be financially strapped to support this channel. We always want folks to take care of themselves. So
they're joking.
I know, but just in case of it, because, you know, someone's about to sit there and go, oh my God, he's sucking money out of people who can't afford it. If you can't, we encourage you not to, because I would rather you take care of yourself and make sure you're in a good spot instead of helping this channel and keep on running. So with that, thank you so much for the support, Wubba. Also, good joke, but I also have to make sure to put out that disclaimer just in case. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right. And with that being said, we are moving on into our live chat questions. And also, Arnie YDT tried to do a switcheroo on me just a second ago. He said, your singing wasn't that bad. And I was about to say, you're trying to goat me into actually singing so you can make a remix out of it. And they said, oh, I meant the Enforcer. Thank you. But anyways, the Morse code was solved tonight by Mark Hodges, Cfay, JP's Gone Fishing, and Cliff Simonson. They said the Morse code says the Russian army is setting the new land speed record in their latest retreat. Slava Ukraini.
That's the sound of money. And you, and all of you, got it correct. And y'all got the Morse code message correct. That was the right one. They are setting the new land speed record down there in those Ladas. So you got those Ladas kitted out. They're like sleeper Ladas, and they got nitrous in them too. They're just taking off out of there. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And of course, I thank y'all once again for deciphering that Morse code message. I don't know why I thought it was a question there for a minute. It is the Morse code message, and I thank y'all for deciphering that again on the 442nd day of the war. Believe it or not, but Saturday is going to be the 444th day of the war, so the number is going to be 444. We've gone through so many days like that at this point. Day 111, day 222, day 333, and now day 444. And that's actually really weird to think about. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also that post on Twitter, by the way, of meanwhile, at the Kremlin has gotten up to 200,000 views. It's gone up 40,000 since the last time we talked about it. It's blowing up, and my phone is absolutely going bonkers too.
All of our memes keep blowing up. But with that, it's great. That's great to hear. Actually, that's amazing. And with that,
You know what really like somewhat kills me? I'm glad people love the meme, but I put like a lot of thought into like that last tweet I put out, the analysis tweet. That one barely got any views, but that meme took off like wildfire.
yeah, you know what's crazy is that this one right here, Matthew actually came down and he was like, okay, you agree with this, right? And I looked over, I was like, yeah, that's great. He did a great job. And we actually went, like, usually he just puts out the tweets and we don't really talk about him much. You know, he'll just come by and go, have you peeped to Twitter? And then I'll look at it a little bit. But this one we actually talked about and made sure it was good and well put together. Only 2,500 views. This one got 5,000. Then meanwhile, a meme gets 200,000 views. Like, it's weird, you know? I don't know if you should go to doing memes or something. Like then again, Matthew, I'm always telling you, people love some high-spirited, good jokes. And that's pretty good proof of it right there, because a meme did really well.
I think I'll probably keep it 75% serious and 25% jokes.
75% C, 25% weed. You know, like that thing said on SpongeBob. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from Carta, who says, I saw Zelensky say today that Ukraine was not quite ready for counteroffensive, but why would Zelensky tell Russia their plans?
Well, the reason why is because it's most likely some kind of an attempted deception. And, you know, the Russians may fall for it, they may not, but at least it throws up a good smoke and mirror show, so that way they really don't know what's going on. Or they may start second-guessing what they see is going on. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to David L., who says, my question is, do you expect more fires, collapse, and sabotage inside of Russia? And do you think Russian Federation's eastern oblasts might be tiring of sending their boys and men to the front?
I would say, can you reread that one again?
My question is, do you expect more fires, collapse, and sabotage inside of Russia? And do you think that Russian Federation's eastern oblasts might be tiring of sending their boys and their men to the front?
Now, the eastern oblasts are plain worn out already. There will be more sabotages, most likely if Bakhmut is lost. We'll probably see the sabotage increases. We'll probably see partisans get more bold. And so I would say yes to both of those things. More sabotage, and the eastern provinces are certainly worn out for sure. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the Keebler Elf, who is here in the live chat with us. And they said, have you heard that the traitor Siegel wants to film a movie about the war? And I'd imagine that movie is going to be perfectly unbiased.
I like Pringles. That's what he's going to say in the movie. I like Pringles. I also do Aikido. And someone's about to tell me that's a real martial art. I'm waiting for it. So it's about
got to do a documentary on why he gave up fine American living to go hang out in Russia and basically be a loser.
Because he's a psychotic nut. Like that's really the reality of it. He's psycho. He's deranged in the head. Well, he's mentally ill. That's the truth of it. And the Russians love mentally ill people. I mean, the hell, their whole government's filled with mentally ill people. But yeah, if he makes a movie, I'm not watching it, and it will suck for sure. But hey, did y'all hear that there's going to be that finally, after that weird movie with Nicolas Cage in it and Cocaine Bear, there's finally going to be a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I feel like that's like 10 years too late, but they're finally making one. You know, I saw that pass over. It became big news because someone actually filmed the pre-screening thing on their phone, and it had their key on it, so they violated an NDA to film that thing and put it out on Twitter. So it blew up everywhere, you know, at least within, like, the world of people like, oh, this guy is so screwed. And then I watched it because I was like, is this guy really screwed? And I was like, oh, he's really screwed. Because he showed a whole trailer, and I was like, dang, this guy's out here, he's doing it. I was like, that's wild. He's probably about to get sued to the kazoo, and then he probably won't be able to pay it, and so he'll go to federal prison or something similar. But with that, that addresses that fairly well. We're on to the next one.
And we have another super chat. This one is from Slava Something, who puts in a $2 super chat and says the Russian bot has returned. And Slava Ukraini.
Hey, and look, it's the Russian bot we like. It's the one Russian bot we like. And I thank you, Slava Something, for returning, and also Slava Ukraini and Rom Slava. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I saw Rafael Torres say in the live chat, trust me, Putin will use nuclear. You can't use logic. And Raphael, I've said that at the very, very beginning when I first got on this channel. The war was like a month or two old at that point. That still might be the case, but I'm starting to doubt it because he's made so many empty threats about nukes. I don't think he'll actually use them at this point, unless something dramatically changes where Russia is like on the brink of destruction and he's still in power. I doubt they'll ever be used. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say they'll probably never even be used, even if his power is jeopardized. It would just be unprecedented. And when you really think about the implications of Ukraine to Russia are the same strategic kind of implications that the Soviets were looking at when they invaded Afghanistan. They would lose Afghanistan and leave without using a single nuclear weapon during that entire 10-year war. And Afghanistan would have a massive destabilizing effect, especially the Taliban and the Mujahideen that were there, onto those stand serious countries, and were a large reason why the Soviet Union collapsed in that area. And also, well, that's a whole historical thing on its own, because the Muslim populations of the Soviet Union were so much more difficult to control than the rest of them, because they would openly revolt. They would conduct armed revolts against the Soviet Union way back in the early times, and so the Soviets learned that they had to tread carefully with them and make sure that things were stable just south of the Soviet Union, so that way nothing happened down there. So when something did start to happen, Afghanistan had about as much strategic implication to the future of the Soviet Union as Ukraine has to the Russian Federation right now. And yet they still didn't use a nuke during that time as the Soviet Union, knowing what that would have as, I guess you could say, a downside to it if they lost that war, and they did. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dubsy Dapster, who says,
I pull up capybara. put up that capybara, man. We got to get that capybara. Man, I saw a video. I saw one of these things and they went crazy. I think I have that. I think I could put that video on the Discord.
Maybe so. I think it has bad, like, copyrighted music in it.
No, it doesn't. Wait, hang on.
The capybara, like, pronunciation.
Wait, hang on. Let me go and pull up the video. Let me see if it does. I got to go find it real quick. It's one with a blanket. Yeah, here we go. Let me see. It doesn't. I can send it 1 second. I have to show that one, Matthew, because we've been getting some good laughs out of that one. Let's see here. Let me scroll down and go find it. It's the one with the blanket. Here we go. Okay, just that one. There we go. Send it. 1 second. It's loading. Hey, there we go. All right, so let me go to Discord. Let me get that thing up. So sadly, Matthew won't be able to watch it with us, but here's the clip for y'all.
Okay, this feels like his bottoms.
What is it? Atlas? Hello there.
Oh, wow.
Uh-oh, we scared him really bad.
Why the hell would they put a massive rodent in a cage like that and expect it not to freak out, man? Like, that makes no sense to me. But anyways, we've been getting a huge laugh out of that one because that capybara, man, it was not pulling up. It was pulling out. And so, well, actually, that sounded so bad. But anyways, with that, we're on to the third to last one of the night.
And this one goes to RL, who says, do you think Russia's front line will collapse when attacked by Ukrainian Leopard tanks at Bakhmut?
Oh, certainly. They're collapsing now, even without Leopards. They'll certainly collapse with Western tech attacking them head on. And so with that, thank you so much once again for a pretty good question. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And we are on to the second to last one of the night.
And this one goes to Wes Downer, who says, what do you make of Zelensky establishing a military administration in Savdosk yesterday?
I would have to be honest with you. I think we had that question last night as well. I haven't really looked into it much because our day was very busy today. Not going to get into the exact details of what we were doing, but we were very busy behind the scenes working on some stuff. So I didn't really have a lot of time to look at that today in particular. So unfortunately, I'll have to declare ignorance on that. And so in replacement of that, we will be moving on to the second to last question of the night again.
And this one goes to, let's see here, Mad Machine, who says, do you think that the orcs are going to start digging up World War II soldiers to operate their T-34s?
No doubt about it. They will be doing that. They'll be going, comrade, you must come back, blade. And you'll be like, oh, blade. It was hell on earth back then. There was no vodka. We have plenty now. We just don't have enough men. Oh, I'll go. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Doom Guy, who says, how bad or good do you think the Chechen forces would fare in this Bakhmut situation compared to Wagner?
They're gonna fare far worse, because if you thought the Wagner was poorly trained, the Chechen Kadyrovites have no training at all. They're more of a loose militia than anything, and so they're going to fare incredibly poorly. They fared very poorly in Mariupol, and that shouldn't really, in all honesty, with the amount of forces that Ukraine had there, while it was a very defensible city, it shouldn't have been that long and drawn out of a battle, and so many Chechen Kadyrovites got killed in that battle. And then on top of that, they then withdrew from the battle about halfway through and then just went into being a TikTok unit, and they never actually fought. So I'd say they do poorly in Bakhmut, and if anything, they're just going to be filming stupid videos and doing their stupid stuff as usual. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. Today has certainly been an amazing day, and if you all have enjoyed the stream, make sure to subscribe. It means a lot to us. And also, Slava Russia said, Slava something, said, I'm the lucky last person of the night. And yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are the lucky last person of the night. And so thank you once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, I hope you all do subscribe. We run the stream 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night except for Monday, and we cover the past 24 hours of the war. We also do short war summaries, and on Sundays we run fundraisers in support of Ukraine to help the Ukrainians over there that we cover the news about. And so make sure to show up on Sunday if you do want to support the Sunday fundraiser. And of course, thank you all so much once again for watching. We'll see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of this glorious counterattack in the area of Bakhmut. And thank you all so much once again for watching. Good night, good luck, take care, and of course, Slava Ukraini. And I'll see you all tomorrow.
And good night, Slava Ukraine, and I pull up.
Capybara.
Yes. The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Слава, ні воля, ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького